Muy buenos días. Mi nombre es Carlos Salazar Chavarría, especialista de
Very
la
good morning.
División
My
de
name is
Vivienda y
Carlos
Desarrollo
Salazar,
Urbano y
specialist
coordinador del Grupo
of
Temático de
the
Urban Green.
Urban
Les doy
Development
la
and
más
Housing
cordial
Division of
bienvenida
the
al quinto seminario de la
IDB.
serie
I welcome you to
Ciudades
the
más
fifth seminar of
resilientes en
series
América
More
Latina
Resilient
y el
Cities in
Caribe.
Latin America and the Caribbean.
Siguiente, por favor.
Next slide, please.
Este seminario se realizará en
So
español,
this
aunque como
seminar will be
siempre
carried out
tendremos
in Spanish,
interpretación
but
simultánea en los
always
tres
we're going
idiomas.
to have simultaneous
Para escucharlo
interpretation
en
in
el
three
idioma de su
languages.
preferencia,
To
solo
listen
tocan
to your
el
language of
clic
preference, the only thing you have to do
disminutivo
is
Sub
click
y
on
seleccionar
the
su
bottom
preferencia.
right icon
Las
and choose
preguntas
your
pueden
preference.
enviárnoslas
The
en la
questions, you
sección
can
de
send
Q&A.
us
La
your
grabación estará
questions in the
disponible en
Q&A
el canal
section, and the
de
recording
YouTube del
will
video que les
be
estamos compartiendo aquí abajo
available
en
on
pantalla.
our YouTube channel, and you can see the link right there.
El grupo temático Urban Green es un
The thematic
espacio
group
de
Urban
trabajo
Green is
colaborativo
a
que busca
workspace,
mejorar la
collaborative space work
resiliencia
that
para
aims to
conservar
improve
la biodiversidad
urban
en
resilience
ciudades
and
en
preserve
América Latina
biodiversity
y el
in cities in
Caribe.
Latin America and the
Esta
Caribbean.
labor se
This
alinea con la
work
estrategia
is
institucional
in line with
Grupo
the institutional strategy or the
Transformación para
IDB
una
group,
mayor escala de
transformation
impacto.
for a greater
Promueve
scale
soluciones
impact,
basadas en la naturaleza
and
como
promote
eje central
solutions-based in nature
para enfrentar el cambio climático en
to face
entornos
climate
urbanos
change
y
in
actúa
urban
como
environments and
facilitador clave
act
en la
as
agenda
a key
climática urbana,
facilitator in the
impulsando buenas
climatic
prácticas y
climate
herramientas
agenda,
para la
promoting best
resiliencia.
practices and tools for resilience.
La red de ciudades del PIB conecta cerca de
The IDB
300
City
ciudades de
Network
América Latina y
connects
el Caribe,
close to
promoviendo el
300 cities in
intercambio de
America and the
experiencias
Caribbean, promoting the
urbanas y
exchange of
herramientas de
urban
negocio,
solutions and management
fortalecimiento del
tools,
liderazgo local y
strengthening
capacidades técnicas
local
y
leadership and
alianzas
technical
con el sector
capacities,
público, privado,
and
academia y organismos multilaterales.
obviously
Nuestro
everything
objetivo es
that was with
acompañarlos sobre todo
multilateral
locales en la
organisms, and
construcción
we
de
went to
ciudades más
assist
sostenibles, inclusivas y productivas. Si ustedes
all
quieren recibir
cities to
información,
be more
no solo de
resilient.
la
So if you
serie,
want to get more
sino
information not
también de
only of the
todas las
series of these seminars,
actividades y
but of all
materiales
the
que
activities
generamos
and
desde
materials
diferentes
that
ciudades
we generate from our
distribuidas
city
hasta
network, we
unirse a
invite you to
conocedores de la red.
subscribe to the
En el
newsletter
chat
of
acá
the
abajo
network.
estamos
In the
enviando un
chat,
enlace de
we are
suscripción
sending to you
donde
the
pueden indicar
subscription
su
link where you
preferencia
have
por
to
los
tell
temas de
us
vivienda
your
y desarrollo
preference
urbano y en
by
subtemas seleccionar
for
tres de
urban
sus
development,
favoritos.
and in um, sub subjects you can select allied or partner
Como pueden
cities.
ver, esta es la segunda serie de
As you have been able
seminarios
to
que
see, this is the
realizamos en el
second
año
series of seminars that we have carried out in 2025 about more resilient cities in Latin America and the
El
Caribbean.
seminario sobre la
The
gestión de la
seminar
biodiversidad
about the
urbana en
management
el
of
tiempo y en
urban
contexto
biodiversity is the
y
fifth and last one
concluye
of this
este cambio que
series, and
iniciamos
it
el pasado
concludes a
martes 2 de
discussion that we
diciembre sobre el
started in
crecimiento
the
y
on
regreso a
Tuesday,
lo natural en
December
ciudades de
2nd,
América
that was
Latina y
called
el
"The Return
Caribe.
of Natural to
Si
Cities
eso lo
for Cities in Latin
perdieron,
America and the
este video de
Caribbean."
grabaciones
If
de
you
toda la
missed it,
serie está
don't forget
disponible
that the
desde
recordings of
nuestro
all these
sitio web.
sessions will be
En el
available
chat
in
les
our
estamos
YouTube
compartiendo
channel,
el
and in
playlist
the
de
chat we're
YouTube
sharing with you
para que puedan
our
verlas
YouTube
allí.
playlist so you can watch it.
¿Y por qué es estratégico hablar de
And
gestión
why
de la
is it
biodiversidad
strategic
urbana
to
para
talk
América Latina
about
y el Caribe?
biodiversity
Porque el
with
panorama es
Latin America and the
preocupante.
Caribbean?
Estamos
Because
perdiendo nuestro
we are
capital
really
natural.
concerned we're losing
Según
our
la
natural
Resolución
capital.
2022 del
In
Informe
accordance to the
Cuantitativo
edition
sobre el
2022
WWF,
of the
se registra
Alive
un
Planet
descenso
of
promedio del
WWF report, we have a
2,5%
reduction of
en la abundancia
69%
poblacional de
of the
mamíferos,
population
reptiles,
abundance
aves,
of
peces y
mammals,
anfibios en todo el
reptiles,
mundo.
birds, and amphibians
América
all over the
Latina y
world,
el
and
Caribe
fishes as well.
alberga
The American and the
aproximadamente el
Caribbean
60% de la
cover
biodiversidad terrestre del planeta,
60% of
incluyendo ecosistemas
biodiversity,
clave como la Amazonía,
including key
que concentra
ecosystems like the
aproximadamente el
Amazon that
10% de la
concentrates
biodiversidad mundial,
10% of
y
biodiversity in
humedales
the
que
world,
representan el
and
20% de la
wetlands that
superficie
represent
terrestre.
20% of the
De
surface
acuerdo
of the
con el
region. In
WWF, el
accordance to
promedio de
WWF,
reducción
the
para las
average
poblaciones de pez
reduction
dorados en
for
América Latina y el
vertebrate
Caribe, el
populations,
índice mortalidad
populations in Latin
es
America
94% con respecto a
reaches
las cifras que teníamos en
94%
1970.
compared to what we had
Pero
back in
conservar la
1970.
biodiversidad
But
urbana
preserving the
no puede
biodiversity
verse como
or
una
urban
carga,
biodiversity
sino como una
shouldn't be seen
oportunidad.
as a burden, but
La
as an
gestión de la
opportunity.
biodiversidad urbana es
Urban
una
biodiversity
oportunidad para que
management
las
is an
ciudades
opportunity so
mejoren la
that cities
calidad de
can
vida de sus
improve
habitantes
the
y
life quality
fortalezcan su
of their
sostenibilidad.
inhabitants and strengthen
Hay
their
beneficios,
sustainability.
por ejemplo,
There's
en
clear
regulación
benefits.
climática, los
Obviously,
árboles
climate
reducen la temperatura
regulations
urbana entre 2
to
y 8
reduce the
grados
urban temperature
centígrados,
between 2 and 8
disminuyendo costos energéticos hasta en un
degrees, reducing
30%.
energetic costs
En
by
salud y bienestar,
30%,
el acceso a
and
espacios
in
verdes
healthcare and
reduce estrés y
well-being,
presión arterial. Y no
obviously it
menos
reduces
importante, a
stress
nivel
and blood
económico,
pressure
las
and
propiedades cercanas a áreas
economic
verdes pueden
prices.
aumentar hasta en un 20%.
Areas close to
Y
green areas
lograrlo requiere
increase their price
más
by
que buena
20%. To
voluntad,
achieve this
demanda información
requires more than
precisa,
goodwill. It demands
coordinación
solid
interna
information,
y una
coordination
nueva
between
manera de
stakeholders, and a
entender la
new way
relación
of
entre
understanding
las
the relationship
personas y
between
la
people
naturaleza.
and
Las
nature.
ciudades y en particular los gobiernos
Cities and in
subnacionales
particular subnational governments, are key in the protection and harnessing of urban biodiversity. thanks to the capability to transform concepts and regulations in concrete actions and tangible projects. Urban biodiversity responds to multiple scales that transcend administrative limits of the cities. This is why an effective governance process has to involve multiple stakeholders that from their diversity and through vertical cooperation process. I mean, international, national, subnational, and local processes, and also horizontal, for example, between many sectors like the environment, planning, education, etc., and nutrition to broaden the knowledge, mechanisms, and management capability. Biological biodiversity emphasizes the citizen participation as a condition for sustainable solutions. So this is why it's fundamental to find instruments and tools that would allow us to consult all the different visions and way of assessing biodiversity, urban biodiversity. This is why in this session, we will address first a conversation about experiences in biodiversity, acknowledging the difference of context and how they have created some similarities in regards to the mechanisms to overcome obstacles and harnessing all particular aspects of each region. On one hand, we'll see how biodiversity can be a common point to be able to achieve agreements beyond the jurisdictional borders. As we have mentioned, specifically with the municipalities of the Congo's River in the basin of Bessos in Barcelona. This is to open a conversation in regards to, obviously, the cycle for urban biodiversity that harnesses the conditions of each territory. Second, we are going to see how urban biodiversity can be used as a key factor to transform marginalized areas. For example, Villa 20 in Buenos Aires and Ciénaga in Barranquilla. And third, when the importance of have governance, participating governance models that start by acknowledging that urban biodiversity is a common good, is a common asset, and it protects obviously the swamps, etc., governments, communities, private sector, and the academia, especially initiatives of nature of cities that through creative processes have been able to propose the discussion from a bottom-up approach. Today's seminar will be moderated by Natalia Vidiga Coachman, specialist of housing and urban development of the IDB. And we will have a wonderful panel for conversation in which we will have Javier Romero, who is responsible of the Bessos Tordera Consortia of the supramunicipal region of Barcelona in Spain. We have also Diana Ruiz, researcher of the Nature-Based Solutions Institute for the Alexander von Humboldt Institute in Colombia. Daniel Kozak, Diego Rada, and Claudia Mistelli. We have Daniel Gonzalez, as we mentioned before, director of the Habitat Research Energy, Habitat Energy Center of the UBA in Buenos Aires, Diego Rada, Development Sub-Manager, Urban Sub-Manager of Eduardo Barranquilla, and Claudia Mistelli, Joint Director of Nature Cities Europa. And then we'll answer some questions and type send up some questions that is has sent through our Q&A sessions. Without further ado, I'm going to give the floor to Natalia, a specialist in urban development of IDB. She's going to be moderating this
Muchas
panel.
gracias, Carlos.
Thank you, Carlos. Can you guys hear me well?
Okay.
All right.
Bueno, como comentó Carlos,
as Carlos mentioned, we were going to start a panel that would help us to understand how to integrate biodiversity in urban planning from different contexts. Our two guests will apport complementary visions, the ecological vision at a scale of a basin in Europe and Latin American experiences, strengthening ecological structures, nature-based solutions, and soft skills. This dialogue will allow to identify common challenges, common lessons, and concrete opportunities to move forward for more resilient cities that are connected to nature. Up next, now, I'll give the floor to our panelists. Guys, please.
El responsable de medio fluvial del consorcio Bessos Tordera,
Javier Fordero, responsible of the Bessos Tordera Seaway or Maritime Way in Barcelona, Spain, Xavier
trabajado
is
durante más
licensed
de
in
20
biology. He
años
has worked for
como
more than
técnico de medio
20
ambiente en la
years
ciudad
as
de
environment
Granollers,
technician
en
in the city
Barcelona,
of
España,
Granollers in
en
Barcelona,
proyectos de
Spain,
regeneración de espacios
in
naturales,
regeneration projects,
reciclación fluvial y reutilización de
river
aguas.
restoration, and water
Ha
reuse.
podido participar en
He
una
has been
docena
involved
de
in
proyectos
dozen international
internacionales
projects
sobre
on
la
urban
gestión de
ecosystem
ecosistemas
management
urbanos
using nature-based
mediante
solutions,
soluciones basadas en la
including the
naturaleza. Entre
Interlace
ellos, el
project,
proyecto Interlace, donde colaboró con
where
ciudades
he collaborated with
latinoamericanas
Latin
en
American
Costa
cities
Rica,
in
Colombia.
Costa Rica, Colombia, Ecuador, and Ecuador.
Recientemente
He
ocupó
recently
un nuevo
took up a new
cargo como
position as head of
responsable de
river
espacios
spaces for the
fluviales para
Besos
las
and
cuencas
Tordera
del
river
Beso
basins,
y Tordera,
promoting
incluyendo la
river
cuenca del
preservation in
río,
collaboration
en
with 68 cities and
colaboración
towns
con
in the
68
Barcelona and
ciudades y pueblos
Girona
de la región de
region of
Barcelona y
Catalonia.
Girona en Cataluña. Muchas gracias, Javier.
Thank you very much, Javier.
Ahora les presento a
Now,
Diana
let me
Ruiz,
introduce you to
que es
Diana Ruiz.
investigadora del Centro de
She's a
Soluciones Basadas en la
researcher from
Naturaleza
the
del
Nature-Based
Instituto
Solutions Center of the Institute
von
Alexander
Humboldt
Humboldt
en Colombia.
in Bogota, Colombia.
Diana es bióloga
Diana
con una
is a
maestría en
biologist
conservación
with
y
a
uso de la
master's degree in
biodiversidad.
preservation and
Su
use of
trabajo se
biodiversity.
centra en
Her
investigar y
work is
promover
based in
directrices de gestión para
researching
mejorar la incorporación de la
management by
biodiversidad y los
management
servicios
guidelines to
ecosistémicos en
promote
la planificación urbana y
biodiversity planning,
regional,
obviously,
promoviendo
and
la
ecosystem sectors in
implementación
the
de soluciones
urban and
basadas
regional
en la
planning, promoting the
naturaleza.
implementation of nature-based
En los
solutions.
últimos años,
In recent
junto con
years,
un equipo
together with a
multidisciplinar,
multidisciplinary
ha
team,
apoyado a
she has
diferentes
supported
ciudades
different
en la
cities in
identificación,
identifying and
recuperación de la
consolidating the
estructura
ecological
ecológica del
structure of the
territorio,
territory,
el análisis de los
analyzing
servicios de
urban
ecosistema,
ecosystem
la
services,
formulación de
formulating plans
planes
for the
para la
management
gestión de
of
espacios
urban green
verdes
spaces,
urbanos, la
local
biodiversidad
biodiversity,
local y
and
la acción
climate
climática,
action,
así como la
as well as the
co-creación de
co-creation
las
of
soluciones basadas en la
MBS,
naturaleza.
or nature-based solutions.
Bueno, quisiera empezar
Now,
con una pregunta para Javier.
I'd like to start asking a question to Javier.
Javier, uno de
Javier,
los grandes retos para las
one of the
ciudades al
main challenges
gestionar su
for cities
biodiversidad
when
es que
managing
los
their
límites
biodiversity
administrativos
is
no
that the
siempre coinciden con
administrative
las
barriers
dinámicas
are
ecológicas
doesn't
del
always
territorio.
don't always agree with the
Un
dynamics
ejemplo
of the
claro
territory.
son
A
los
few
ríos que
example are the
atraviesan
rivers that go
múltiples
through
jurisdicciones.
multiple jurisdictions.
Entonces, desde la
So,
perspectiva del consorcio
from the
Besos
perspective of the
Tordera, ¿cuáles
consortium
han
versus
sido los
Tordera,
factores clave para
what
gestionar con
has been
éxito este
what have been the
ambicioso
key
programa de
factors to
restauración
obviously
socioecológica
have
utilizando
a
soluciones
restoration
basadas en la naturaleza en la
of
cuenca del
this
río
river
Beso?
basin, of the
¿Nos
Besos
puedes
Basin
contar
River,
un poco, por
using
favor?
nature-based solutions. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Buenos días, Natalia.
Good
Muchas
morning,
gracias por la
Natalia.
invitación
Thank
y
you very
por la
much for the
presentación.
invitation and for this
Entonces,
introduction.
os tengo que explicar que el Consorcio Besos
So I
Tordera
have to explain that the Besos
es
Tordera
el
Consortium
gestor
is
de las
the
cuencas fluviales
manager of the
del río
river
Besos y
basins
el río
of the
Tordera.
Besos and Tordera
Y en concreto
rivers.
el río Besos sería
And in
la cuenca
concrete,
fluvial de uno de
obviously,
los
it
ríos
goes
que
to the river
desembocan en la
basins,
ciudad de
one of the
Barcelona,
rivers
en España.
that
A lo
end
largo
in the city of
de
Barcelona.
unos 40 años se ha hecho
All
un
throughout these
proyecto
40 years,
de larga duración
we have
de
done a long-lasting
recuperación de
project
todas las cuencas
of
del río
all the
Besos
basins of the Besos
y
River.
básicamente este proceso
And
que
basically, this
lógicamente no
process
conoce
that
límites
logically doesn't know
administrativos,
any type of
límites
limitations,
municipales, ni
administrative
mucho
limitations,
menos,
municipal
pues
limitations, or any of that,
comenzó
can
una
be
etapa de
went through
construcción
a
de
stage of
estaciones depuradoras de
construction,
aguas residuales. Continuó con una segunda
wastewater. It
etapa
continued with the
en la cual
second
se
stage,
saneó los
in
ríos,
which we
ya sea
healed all the
retirando
amphibians,
residuos y también
collecting
ocupaciones
residue
ilegales.
and
Y
illegal
ahora más
settlements.
reciente se está
And in the most
procediendo
recent
a lo que
stage,
sería
we
la
are
recuperación
proceeding
de la
to
biodiversidad del
the
cauce del
recovery
río
of biodiversity,
y la recuperación del
the
espacio
flow of the river, and the
natural
recovery
en los
of the
márgenes
river
fluviales
bank
para
spaces
uso recreativo,
for
uso social,
recreated
siempre
use,
compatible
social use,
con lo que
always
sería la
compatible
biodiversidad. Todo
with
este
what's
proyecto
biodiversity.
ha
So
tenido
all this
una gran
project
aceptación social
has
y yo
had
creo que el factor
broad social acceptance,
clave de
and
todo este programa es el
all
potencial que un
the
río
important part about this
tiene. Es
program
decir, en nuestro caso,
is
ríos
what the
en
river
una zona
can
urbana
cause. For
donde
example,
viven
rivers
5
in an
millones de
urban zone where
personas,
5 million
probablemente
people
son
live.
el ecosistema
Obviously,
urbano
we
más
have the
grande que tenemos
biggest
a
urban
disposición
ecosystem
dentro
that we have at our
del
disposal
contexto
within
más urbano. Y
our
eso te
most
abre una
urban
potencialidad
context.
que no
And
tienen
this obviously
otros proyectos.
opens
Lo digo porque
a
si seguimos
huge
al río
opportunity. If we leave the river on its own, right, they recover really fast, which are basically the leverage to recover other basins. And besides that, it doesn't only recover its logical or ecological, sorry, function, but it creates a recreational value, a social value, which mobilizes all the political support that is so necessary. Other basic aspect is that the river acts as a biological connector. Is on the biodiversity in the city, we need to bring it back, right? So the connector that comes upstream or downstream, well, it working at a scale recovery, all it's done through the river. And from then, do it by stages so that then we can get to an urban center. All of that, we have done it through partnerships between many municipalities in our consumption 68 and working with river basins. We have reached some agreement that have been called river flow caretaking. And these are the guiding work plans to recover our rivers, where each municipality commits itself little by little to the river to have this recovery that is for its own city.
Súper interesante las alianzas que lograron con
Really
diferentes
interesting partnerships that you achieved
frentes clave.
with many
Bueno,
municipalities.
una
That's
segunda
key.
pregunta para ti.
Second question for
Quería
you.
saber,
Mm,
detener la pérdida de
mm,
biodiversidad es un desafío global, ¿no? Como sabemos
obviously,
todos. Pero la forma de
it's a
abordarlo
global
varía
challenge,
mucho
but the way
según las
we address it
necesidades de
changes
cada
depending
región.
on the particular aspects of
¿Qué
each region.
aspectos diferencian la
What
gestión de la
differentiating
biodiversidad
aspects
en el
in the
contexto
function of
europeo?
biodiversity in the European
¿Crees que hay
context
lecciones
you think
aprendidas que puedan ser útiles para
can bring
Latinoamérica y el
useful learned
Caribe?
lessons for Latin America and the
¿Qué nos puedes
Caribbean?
contar en ese
Could you
sentido?
enlighten us a little bit, please, about that? Thank you. In the European context, right now, we have a whole legislation that is quite demanding in regards to what's called the restoration of nature. Actually, the European Union just passed a bill. It's called the Nature Restoration Law that obligates every single state of the European Union to recover the degraded nature 20% by 2030 and 100% by the year 2050. That's, for example, our case with as trip managers. It helps us to restore rivers, and the objective at a European level is 25,000 kilometers of restored rivers for the year 2050. And this is a commitment that was acquired by 30 nations in Europe. So we need to know that this legislation, we don't have it only at a supranational level, but also at a state level, at a regional level, even at a local level. There's regulations that foster biodiversity, green infrastructure, and all the group of acts. Obviously, it has another factor, which is the interest of citizens in having an effective recovery of nature, especially proximity nature. All right. And that has favored to mobilize public funding, basically. Not only not as much private funding, but public funding, which provides us with opportunities to be able to restore rivers, forests, and other ecosystems. And I think that the main lesson that I will convey is that, well, I think that all over Latin America in general, I think habitats outside urban zones are better preserved than in Europe, that there's better potential to preserve nature. It's better than Europe, because historically in Europe, for many, many centuries, it's been too degraded, which obviously entails a problem. and that all of that is long-term work, right? When we created this consortia a lot of years ago, one of the founding women said that the objective of the consortia was to have fishes someday in our rivers. That hasn't happened yet. People laughed at her. People that were creating the consortia laughed at her. 40 years later, we have recovered rivers. Not only we have fishes, but we have autochthonous species, and we have otters that feed themselves on fishes. So what 40 years people were mocking, today is a reality. But obviously you have to do that. It's year by year. It's not easy. It brings a lot of patience and obviously long-term work.
Excelente, Javier. Muchísimas
Excellent,
gracias
Javier.
por
Thank you very much for
compartir
that.
este logro.
Really interesting achievement.
Felicitaciones por todo el trabajo del
Congratulations
consorcio.
for all the work of the
Y
consortium.
utilizaremos estas
And we will
recomendaciones
use those
para
recommendations for Latin America. Thank you.
Bueno, quisiera invitar ahora
Now,
a
I would like to invite
para
Diana
hacer
now.
otra pregunta, Diana.
I would like to
Sabemos
ask you a
que
question, Diana. We know
Humboldt,
that the Humboldt
ha
Institute
apoyado a ciudades no
has
solo en
supported
Colombia, sino
cities not
en
only in
toda
Colombia,
América
but
Latina
all
para
over
fortalecer
Latin
sus
America
procesos de
to
gestión de
strengthen
biodiversidad.
their biodiversity
¿Qué
management
patrones o
processes.
aspectos
What
comunes
patterns
hacen
or
que esta
common
tarea sea
aspects
distinta a la de las ciudades
make it
europeas?
different from
¿Existen
European cities?
aprendizajes que pueden ser
Are there
relevantes
any
para
lessons
otras
learned
regiones?
that could be relevant for other regions? Can you
Gracias,
help us with
Natalia,
that?
y bueno, gracias al BID y
Thank
a
you,
todos
thank you, thank
por estar
you
acá
to
y
the
por
IDB,
haberme
everyone,
invitado.
for having invited
Bueno,
us.
yo realmente no sé
Well,
si
I'm
lo que
not,
voy a hablar es
I don't
en
really,
comparación
I don't
con
really
las
know
ciudades
if we can
europeas,
compare
porque
this
con
with the
Charlie
European
pues
Union,
tuvimos la
obviously,
oportunidad de trabajar
because
juntos en un
obviously we had the
proyecto
opportunity to work
de
together
cooperación entre ciudades de América
and
Latina y
cooperate
Europa
with cities
y,
with
y
Latin
creo
America
que
and
nos dimos
Europe.
cuenta que
But I think we
compartimos también muchos
realized
retos, a
that we
pesar de
share
que
a
Europa y
lot of
Europa
challenges,
tiene
despite the
pues muchos
fact
más
that
avances en este
obviously
tema,
we
creo
have
que
a lot of
todavía
more
hay
progress in
varios
this issue.
retos
So
y
there's a lot of
digamos
challenges
similitudes
and
entre
similar
ciudades, sobre
aspects
todo en las
between
ciudades
cities,
medianas y pequeñas.
especially
Entonces creo que voy
middle-sized
como a
and
resaltar
small cities.
algunos de los
So I'm going
aprendizajes
to highlight
que tenemos
some
y
lessons
creo
learned
que
that
son
we've had,
particulares para la
and I
región.
think are
Bueno, por una
particular for the
parte,
region. On one
desde el
end,
enfoque de biodiversidad, pues
from a
Latinoamérica es
biodiversity
una
approach in
región
Latin America,
innegablemente biodiversa
it's
y
a
también
region that is
urbana, como
undeniably diverse. It's an urban region as
ciudad del
well. It's one
mundo.
of the
Entonces
most
creo que
urbanized
de ahí
regions of the
parten
world.
varios de los
So
retos y
from then,
oportunidades que
we have a
tenemos.
lot of the challenges and
Y
opportunities that we
resaltaría
have at
entonces
hand.
que muchas
And I will
ciudades
highlight that
que
many
están en
cities
crecimiento hoy
that are growing
piensan que de pronto avanzar
think
en
that may
esta
be
gestión de la
moving
biodiversidad hacia
forward in
ciudades más
this
verdes, más resilientes,
biodiversity management, the more resilient
requiere
cities,
de recursos
requires
financieros significativos. Entonces el reto casi
endless
siempre es
financial
no
resources.
tenemos
But the
recursos
challenge
para eso. Las
is
ciudades
that we don't
priorizan
always have,
otro tipo
obviously,
de inversiones
resources for
como
that.
asociados a infraestructura dura
Cities prioritize
o a
other
posiciones
issues,
especiales o
infrastructure,
retos
whatever,
no
social
necesariamente con
security,
la gestión
challenges that are
ambiental,
not
pero creo
environmental.
que partir de
But I
reconocer
think that
ese
starting from
capital natural
acknowledging
y cultural que
that
tienen las ciudades
natural
latinoamericanas,
capital
que
that
son
we
muy
have
diversas,
in Latin
y
America
toda la cultura que está asociada a eso en los
and other
conocimientos
cultures
locales, pues es
associated to that,
un reto y
it's
una oportunidad
a challenge and
particular
a
para la
beautiful
región. Entonces,
opportunity
partir del
for
hecho
the
de que nuestro
region. So
capital
starting from the fact that our
seguramente no va a ser
capital
lo económico,
is
porque
not going
muchas
to be
ciudades que pasa
financial
en casi todos los
because
países tienen
it
el
happens
reto
in
de
most of the
adquirir estos
countries.
recursos para
We have a
inversiones
challenge of bringing these
a nivel de
resources.
ciudad. Sí es
It's
el
not going to
capital
be easily done.
natural que tienen las
It's the capital
ciudades, en
that we
ciudades que
have for the
están todavía
cities.
consolidándose y que
So we
conservan
are considering the fact
sus
that we
humedales, sus
are
bosques.
preserving
Entonces,
those
partir de ese
wetlands and
reconocimiento
forests.
creo que
So starting from
es
acknowledging
algo
that,
que las
it's
ciudades
really
latinoamericanas pueden empezar a
important.
incorporar.
So we
Y
need to
parte de ese
bring
reto
that,
también de
and
lo
starting
social,
from
del
that
capital social y
and
cultural que
from the
tenemos en
social and
ciudades
cultural
como
capital that we
natural.
have in our continent.
También resaltaría algo que esto sí creo que
Also,
puede
I would
estar
like
en
to highlight
comparación con las
something
ciudades
that could
europeas
be compared to
y es bajo
European
libre,
cities. And
cosa
I,
hace
as I said to
unos días
Danielle,
en otro seminario
some
que
days
tuvimos
ago in the
compartí
seminar that we
algo
had
muy
together,
interesante y es
which
que
is
tal
quite
vez todavía
interesting, and is
tenemos una
that
percepción del
maybe we
desarrollo
still have a perception
asociado a
of
la
development
infraestructura
that
gris.
is associated to
Entonces,
great
siento que
infrastructure.
todavía es un reto
So I feel it's still a
asociar
challenge
el
to
desarrollo de una
associate
ciudad, la
the development of a
competitividad y
city to
sostenibilidad
connectivity,
a
sustainability,
la naturaleza y a conservar lo que
and nature,
todavía es la base de
and
nuestro
preserving
territorio y no
the
a
territory,
transformarlo en
and
construcción sin
not
esa
to
visión,
transform
digamos,
it with
civilizada de
construction,
lo que
with
puede
that
ser una
civilized
ciudad. Entonces, en eso sí
vision
creo que
of
pues
what a
hemos
city could
avanzado,
be.
pero
So I think
todavía
we
pues
move
el
forward, but
desarrollo de las ciudades está
obviously
asociado pues mucho más a
we
la
have
infraestructura
seen
y a las
that
soluciones
people still perceive
desde
the
lo
development of
gris
a
y no
city
necesariamente
relies on
una
buildings,
base
not
natural
necessarily environmentally, with green
También
spaces.
pues resaltaría algunos casos
I would like to highlight some
que
cases,
seguramente
obviously,
ahorita podremos ver con
that
Barranquilla
we can see with Barranquilla.
y que hay casos interesantes en
We have really
Montería,
interesting
en Colombia,
cases
y es
in
cómo la
Corridaba and
gestión de la
Montería in
biodiversidad
Colombia,
se
how
integra a
biodiversity
la
management
bioculturalidad.
is
Entonces creo que tenemos estrategias
linked
muy
to
interesantes
culture.
también, sabiendo que muchas de nuestras
So
ciudades han recibido
we know
migración
many of our
desde
cities
lo
have
rural
seen
o desde ciudades más
rural
pequeñas,
migrations,
todavía
etc.,
tenemos
etc.,
esa
and we
cercanía
still have
con
the
el contexto
closeness
natural,
with the natural
cómo la gestión de la
context.
biodiversidad puede ser
How
vinculada
biodiversity
directamente
management can be
siempre
brought in
a esas
always
tradiciones, a la
to
cultura.
those
Entonces, no
traditions.
separarlo, y creo que casos
So not
exitosos
to
se han
break
dado
away
cuando
from them,
han
instead
partido más de
embrace it.
esa percepción
We've
ciudadana
started
de
from
la
that
identidad, de la
citizen
construcción de
perception
identidad
of
alrededor de una
identity in
ciudad
the construction of
de
the or of
ciénaga, una
cities.
ciudad de bosque,
For
una
example,
ciudad
a swamp city, a
pues
forest
que
city, a
cuenta
river
una
city.
historia sobre la cultura de la
So
gente.
we can
Entonces
tell
creo
a
que también
story
tenemos
about the
una
culture of
oportunidad
people.
para
So we have a huge
potencializar todas las
opportunity
intervenciones a través
to
de ese
boost
arraigo
all these
con la
interventions through
naturaleza
that
que todavía conservamos
attachment
pues
to
en nuestras
nature that we
comunidades
still preserve.
locales. Entonces creo que ahí hay
We
un
look at
reto
communities. So
también,
I
pero
think there's a
una
huge challenge
oportunidad
there,
de
but there's
entender
a
cómo
huge
parte de
opportunity
esa
also
construcción de
of
identidad
starting
puede
from that
llegar a
construction of culture
generar
identity to
apropiación
be able to
y
achieve
que la
that
gestión de la biodiversidad
ownership
pues sea
so that
a largo
biodiversity
plazo. Creo que
management will
compartido
be
también con Europa
in the long
y parte
term.
de lo que
And I've shared
mencionó
this with
Xavi
Europe
es
and part of what Xavi
cómo
mentioned.
hacer para que
It's
los
how
gobiernos
can we make
consideren
governments
que
to not be the
definen la
ones
gestión de la
that
biodiversidad y esos
define
proyectos a
biodiversity
largo plazo,
management,
porque hay un
those
reto.
projects in the long
Entonces,
term.
cada 4
That
años
entails a huge
un
challenge
alcalde
because
llega con una
every
idea,
4 years a
construye un
new mayor comes with an
proyecto y
idea
hace
with a
parte
technical team.
de
And
esto, pues
obviously,
como el reto principal
this
que hemos
is a
identificado
huge
también en
barrier.
muchas ciudades es que los procesos terminan
Process end
cortándose
up being cut
con el
off
tiempo y es difícil consolidar
because
una
there's a new
visión a
mayor
largo
coming in.
plazo que pues
So
permita
we need to have a
incluir
long-term vision, guys, about this,
los beneficios de las
so that we
intervenciones en
can
el
have
futuro,
bring all the
monitorear
benefits of interventions in the future, et cetera, et
compartido, y creo que
cetera.
esto sí también
And
es una lección
obviously,
aprendida de
this
todas las
is a
regiones.
lesson
Me
learned from
atrevería
all the
a
region.
decir que también un reto en Europa es cómo generar
And
estas
I would dare to
visiones a
say there's
largo
a chance
plazo
in Europe and
que
how to create these
superen los
long-term
gobiernos,
visions
¿no? Que
that
no
will
sea
go
pues
or
con una
overcome
visión muy
governments, right?
cortoplacista
So,
de 4 años.
so
Y
that we
sobre
don't have
esto
a
creo que
short-term 4-year
también las
vision,
ciudades tienen
and
una
cities
oportunidad de
have an
fortalecer los
opportunity
procesos comunitarios y que
of
sean más las
strengthening community
comunidades las que
processes so
lideren
that communities can be the
las
one that lead
intervenciones y los proyectos. Creo que
interventions
de eso
and
también hay
projects.
bastantes
So from then,
ejemplos en la
we have a lot
región
of
de
examples in
México,
the region that are
de
quite
que las
interesting,
ciudades son
so
las
that
que lideran
how,
generalmente
despite the
estas
fact that
intervenciones a
cities
escala
lead these
macro,
interventions
pues
at
al
a
final
macro
son
scale, at the end of
las
the day,
comunidades las que lo mantienen en el tiempo. Entonces
we
también
have the
cómo, cómo
communities that
fortalecer
cover this
capacidades,
over
cómo
time,
mejorar
how to strengthen the
eficiencia, algunos
capabilities.
procesos para que
Mm,
este reto, que creo que es crítico
and
en en las
obviously,
ciudades,
this
pues sea
is a
menor, ¿no? Y
critical
es empoderar a este
challenge,
tipo de actores
mm,
que sí permanecen
and
en
have a
el
lot of
territorio y que
stakeholders that stay
pueden
there
hacer
over
que esta
time,
gestión sea viable en el
and
tiempo.
obviously
Y
that so it can be
finalmente
feasible over
también, esto
time.
sí creo que también en
And
comparación con lo que
there's a
aprendí
comparison with
de
what
Europa,
we
que son
learned
proyectos que
from
hemos
Europe
tenido la oportunidad de
that
compartir,
we've had the
es
opportunity to
que
share,
tal vez sí hace falta
is
en la
that
región
maybe in
fortalecer
the region we need to
fondos de
strengthen
financiación
funding
o
funds
estrategias y
or
alianzas
strategies and
público-privadas o
partners,
otros
public-private
mecanismos de articulación
partnerships,
entre actores
and
para
other mechanisms,
particularmente para temas
so
de
that
gestión de la biodiversidad en
we
ciudades,
have
a pesar de que en Latinoamérica pues
biodiversity management in cities, despite the fact that in Latin
fondos
America we have a lot of
y se está
funds
movilizando la inversión
and we're
artística para enfocarse
mobilizing
en la naturaleza y a temas ambientales.
nature-based solutions
Siento
and
que
environmental issues.
ahí
I
están todavía
believe
muy separados, ¿no? Entonces está el
that they're
desarrollo
too broken away from
sostenible por
each
una
other. So
parte,
sustainable
está el
development on
territorio
one
urbano
end,
por
we
otra,
have
la
climate change on
biodiversidad
the
muy
other
en lo rural
side, biodiversity from
aún.
the rural point of
Entonces,
view.
cuando las personas que
So
trabajamos en estos
when
temas de
we
biodiversidad y ciudades,
work in
encontrar
biodiversity in cities,
mecanismos
when we
que sean
find
específicos
mechanisms that are
para eso,
specific
todavía es
for
un
this,
reto,
it's
contrario
still a challenge,
pues algunas iniciativas que sí
opposite to
funcionan
some
un poquito más
initiatives that
específicas
we
para
see in Europe that are
ciudades y un
specific
enfoque de
for
soluciones basadas
cities
en la naturaleza, por
from
ejemplo,
a
en
nature-based solution
biodiversidad.
approach.
Creo que en Latinoamérica
So I
todavía
think in Latin America
necesitamos
still we
fortalecer
need to strengthen
esa alianza pues entre la
that
gestión de la biodiversidad y el
partnership
desarrollo
between
urbano sostenible.
biodiversity management
Y
and
creo que
sustainable urban
dejaría por
development.
ahí esos
And I
puntos
think I will
para no
stop
alargarme
there
mucho más.
so that I don't dwell so much and keep
Excelente,
it too long.
muchísimas gracias, Diana.
Excellent. Thank you very
Sí,
much,
realmente
Diana.
valorar y conservar la
Yes, we need to assess
biodiversidad,
and
las
preserve
propuestas que ya
biodiversity
tenemos, ¿no?
and obviously
Asociarla
what
al
we have
desarrollo, como dices,
associated
potenciarla con
to
el
development environment to boost it
y que es
as
diversificar un
identity center,
poco
which is to
las lideranzas,
basically
¿no? Además del gobierno,
diversify the partnerships,
también
sorry,
desde la comunidad con diferentes
from
mecanismos de
community with all
financiamiento.
different
Súper
funding
interesante.
mechanisms. That's
Bueno,
really
quisiera
interesting.
hacer
Now,
otra pregunta.
another question.
Como sabes, el Instituto
As
Humboldt,
you
el
know, the
Ministerio de
Humboldt
Medio Ambiente de
Institute, the
Colombia y
Ministry of
el
Environment
BID
in Colombia, and the
desarrollaron una
IDB
herramienta para apoyar
developed a
las
tool
ciudades en el
to
reto de
support
gestionar la
cities
biodiversidad
in the
urbana.
challenge of
¿Puedes
managing
contarnos
urban
más
biodiversity. Can you
sobre
tell us
esta
a little bit
herramienta y
more
por qué
about that
representa un
tool
insumo
and
valioso
why
para
does it
las ciudades
represent
de América
a
Latina y el
useful input
Caribe?
for other
Por
cities in
favor.
Latin America and the Caribbean, please?
Sí,
Thank you.
Natalia, gracias. Voy
Sure, of
a
course.
compartir una presentación
I would like to share a
para que
presentation,
puedan ver
if I may,
algunos recursos.
so you can see some of the
Eh,
resources that we have.
Ya se ve.
Yes, we can see
Listo, entonces yo les voy a contar, pues como ya lo
your
mencionaba,
screen
este
now. As you
proceso
mentioned,
se
there's a
desarrolló
process
más o menos
involved
durante 2
that we
años
developed for
con
2
el
years
apoyo del BID y también
with the
en
support
alianza con
of
el Ministerio de Medio
IDB
Ambiente
and in
en
partnership
Colombia,
with
que
the
ha
Ministry of
trabajado
Environment
pues
here
estos
in
temas de
Colombia.
biodiversidad y
That's
ciudades
work with biodiversity in
a través de una
cities
iniciativa que seguramente
through
ustedes
an
han
initiative
escuchado, que es
that you've
Biodiversidades,
heard,
y
which
luego
is
pues
called
más amplio
biodiversity.
desde el
And
enfoque de
beyond that,
biodiversas y resilientes. Les quiero
resident
contar un poquito
cities.
ese proceso
So I would like to talk to you a
rápidamente
little bit
porque
about that
tenemos
process
poco tiempo,
quickly
pero al
because we don't
final
have a lot of time,
les
but at the end of the
les
day,
podemos dejar los links para acceder
we
si
can
quieren
leave you
participar de un
links.
libro, una publicación
So
que tiene además un
there's a book
contexto
of
técnico
publication
y
that
un
has some technical
micrositio también
aspects
donde,
and a microsite
pues que fue
where
resultado de este
that
proceso
was
y
the
donde pueden
result of this
encontrar otros
process
recursos.
where you can find other
Entonces,
resources.
bueno, partimos
So
y lo que les voy a
we
contar es que es
started,
una herramienta
what
metodológica
is that? Is a
pensada
methodological tool,
para los gobiernos
well
locales
thought for local
y
governments.
práctica de este
And
concepto y esta idea de vincular la
it starts
biodiversidad
from
con el
this
desarrollo
idea
urbano.
of bringing biodiversity
Y
to urban
partimos
development.
de algo que desde el
And we
instituto
start
pues
from
queremos
something that from
promover
the
y es la visión
Institute
de
we want to
ciudades
promote,
desde
which
un
is
enfoque positivo,
a
¿no?
city
Los que
vision from a
trabajamos desde lo
positive
ambiental,
approach.
pues tal vez
Those
hemos
of us
visto
that
la
work
ciudad
in environmental issues,
tradicionalmente
we've
como un
seen
motor de
that the
cambio,
city
como una
is
amenaza a la biodiversidad,
um,
pero pues también es el
change
lugar donde hoy habitamos la
engine
mayoría de
or
nosotros
change driver, but this is where we live,
pues un escenario
right?
para justamente avanzar en esa
And in order to
sostenibilidad.
move
Entonces, ¿cómo
forward in
pasamos de
sustainability.
esta
So
visión
how do we
de
move from
pronto
having
negativa de las
a negative
ciudades
vision
y
of
su
cities
impacto sobre los
and
ecosistemas
its impact on
para ver la
ecosystems
biodiversidad como una
so that we can see
oportunidad para
biodiversity
nuestro
as
bienestar, para la
an
competitividad de las
opportunity
ciudades? Esto que les
so
voy a
that
contar
cities can
pues
become
parte
more
también
competitive.
de eso, de dejar ese mensaje de
So
que
we
la
start from
ciudad,
there,
la biodiversidad en vez de ser
living that
un
message,
limitante para el
the
desarrollo,
biodiversity,
como seguramente
instead
lo
of
hemos
being
visto
a limitation for development,
tradicionalmente, o como las
as we've
ciudades,
seen
un
traditionally,
motor que impacta
how cities
los
are a
ecosistemas,
driving
pues más bien
engine that
cómo esto
impact
se articula de una
ecosystems
manera integral, cómo
negatively. But
pasamos
how
de
can we
verlo
actually
como
lead
un
in a
reto, como
positive
una
way?
oportunidad
Instead of
y
seeing it as a
partiendo de
challenge,
los
let's look at it as an
beneficios que
opportunity.
seguramente ya vamos a
Start
ver
from the
los que estamos
benefits
acá
that many
conectados,
of
de
us
cómo
present here
la
know,
naturaleza pues permite
which
abordar
is
retos
obviously nature
desde
allows
la
us to
adaptación al
address
cambio
challenges
climático,
in
equidad e
regards
inclusión
to
social,
climate
nuevas
change,
oportunidades de
new
empleo
opportunities for
relacionados con la
employment
naturaleza.
associated
Entonces,
to
eso
nature,
primero
etc.,
como un
etc.
mensaje
So
importante de las
that's
herramientas que les
an
voy a
important
contar
message
y es
of the tools that I'm going to
esa visión
talk to you about,
positiva
which is the positive
de
vision
articulación entre la
of
naturaleza y el
articulation
desarrollo.
between nature and
Y este
development.
ejemplo, pues, que
And
siempre
this
me gusta
example
ponerlo,
that I love to
es
put here,
particularmente para Colombia, pero creo que aplica para
it's
todos los
particular for
países de
Colombia, but it applies
Latinoamérica
for
y es
every country in
cómo
Latin America, which
empezamos a
is
dejar de
how we
tener
can
como esa
start
gestión
or how we can
separada,
stop
¿cierto? De
having
las
that
ciudades por un
separate
lado, en este caso
management of
el mapa
cities
que
on
ven
one
aquí a
side.
la izquierda,
In this case of the map that you see on the
en
left,
Colombia lo que llamamos el
is
Sistema
a Colombian
Nacional de
method we call the
Ciudades,
National City
que se
Systems,
basa pues en esta
cities
funcionalidad
system,
social
sorry,
entre ciudades,
that
como hay ciudades que
obviously talks about how
tienen
cities
áreas
interact with each other,
metropolitanas que dependen pues del
metropolitan
flujo
areas that
de otros
depend
municipios a
the
la ciudad
flow
principal
of other
y después
municipalities to the
unos
main
ejes
city,
de
and to define
articulación como
some
unas áreas
cross-cutting
urbanas
access
principales que
as
tiene el
urban
país,
areas that the
pero con
country
un
has,
fondo gris, ¿no? Como pueden
but
ver y
with a
seguramente aplica de
great
nuevo. Este es el caso de Colombia, pero
background, right?
seguramente
This
aplica
case of Colombia,
para los
for
países
that's
de la
why it
región.
applies for
Y
other
es
countries in the
esa
region.
visión urbana, pero
Basically, it's
en un
that
mapa que
urban
está
vision
vacío frente a la
with a map
ciudad.
that's basically empty,
Si no, esas ciudades no
right? Without it,
dependieran o se relacionaran
the cities would
directamente
depend
con
or be
contextos
related
climáticos
directly
y estables.
to the
Por
region and
otro lado,
context
el
that we
mapa que
find
ven
ourselves
en la
in.
mitad es nuestro
The
mapa
map that you
de
see in the
ecosistemas en
middle
Colombia.
is the
Tenemos,
ecosystem
como hemos
map of
dicho, 81
Colombia.
tipos
We
de
have more
ecosistemas
than
y
81
de nuevo
types
parece
of
que fueran solo
ecosystems.
los
And once again,
ecosistemas
you may
sin
see in like that is just ecosystems without any human beings, without any cities, right?
solos.
So
Y en la
that's
derecha
the
solamente está el
standalone
mapa
ecosystems. And on the right,
de Colombia
we
Antiguo,
have
que es
a Colombia map,
parte de reconocer todas
that
las
starts
dinámicas
from
hídricas que tiene el país,
acknowledging
ecosistemas
the dynamics that the country
acuáticos,
has
también de nuevo como si el agua fuera
and
un
water
punto
ecosystems
aislado
as
de
and
los
to see
ecosistemas y
water
aislado de la vida.
as
Entonces, también
one
esta
side the
herramienta
water,
nos
one side the
quiere
ecosystem.
contar
So
parte de esa
this is a
visión,
basic
cómo
tool
hacemos
that
para
we want to
crear
bring
este
on
cambio en la
how we
ciudad
can
sea
make the
integral
management of a
y
city
no
that can be
solo
comprehensive,
priorizando las dinámicas
not only
urbanas
prioritizing
propiamente o las
urban
dinámicas socioeconómicas,
dynamics,
ni tampoco
socioeconomic
priorizar
dynamics,
únicamente la conservación de la biodiversidad
or the
del agua,
preservation of
sino que la
biodiversity of
gestión puede
water,
ser
but instead of that, how can
mucho
this
más holística
management
y
be
entender
much
este
more
contexto
holistic
particular de
and
cada ciudad
understand this
y
particular
además que
context
cada
of each
ciudad es
city?
diversa, ¿no?
And besides that,
No hay
every city
una
is a
receta de
diversity.
la gestión
So
urbana,
there's no
sino que pues cada
recipe
ciudad tiene sus capacidades propias,
of,
tiene un
there's no
contexto
one recipe.
hidrogeográfico particular, tiene unos
We have
retos
different
asociados al cambio
contexts
climático, que en
for
unos
climate
casos son
change.
sequía, en otros son inundaciones, en otros casos
Other
son
ones are
otro
floods,
tipo de retos, entonces cómo pues esa
other types of
gestión es
challenges.
diferenciada y
So
no
this
una
management is
receta que incluso
differentiated
a
and
veces
not a recipe
importamos del
that
norte global
includes,
y
for
cómo se
example,
generan
that
pues
is
ya
imported from the global north, right?
digamos,
And
enfoques
how we
particulares
create these particular
de
approaches
cada
for
región.
each
Ya les
region, all
cuento
right? Now,
rápidamente pues de qué se trata la herramienta,
I'll
partiendo pues
let you
como de
know
estos dos
really, really
postulados
fast what this tool is
principales.
about. This to
Si
impostures.
quieren ahondar más
If you want to
esta
deepen a little bit
iniciativa que
in
lideró
this
Colombia, pues
initiative
parte
that
de
was
un
led by Colombia,
desarrollo
well, it
mucho más
starts from
conceptual
a
desde el
much
libro
more
de
conceptual development
Biodiversidades al
from the book
2030, que nos permite
Biodiversity
pues a ver como
2030
visiones de qué
that you can
significa
see it
ser una
as a
ciudad
vision of
biodiversa,
what does it mean to
para
be
luego
a
construir
biodiverse
luego en
city
articulación
so
con
that
IPBES y el Ministerio
we can have an
desarrollar esta
articulation with the
herramienta
IDB, the
que
Ministry
parte pues
of
de
Development,
reconocer
that's with this tool that starts
particularidades
from
de las
acknowledges
regiones
our
tal y
particular
como las
aspects of
acabo de
cities,
decir, y que en ese momento fue además validada
and that at that moment
e
was
implementada en 6
validated
ciudades
and
piloto que nos
implemented with
permitió pues entender
6
realmente
pilot
qué
cities that
parecen
allowed us
mover
to
nuestros retos,
understand
¿no?
what will be useful for local
Actualmente
governments.
pues
Right now,
sirve para
it's
una ley que
useful
tiene Colombia
for a law that Colombia
recientemente, la Ley
has
de
that was
Ciudades
recently
Verdes y
passed, which is a
Biodiversas,
law
que
of green
el
and biodiverse
ministerio
cities,
ha apropiado muchas de las
from
metodologías
the
que
ministry that
proponemos
has
acá para que las
taken
ciudades avancen
ownerships
y
so that
también
cities can
para,
move
aunque lo
forward,
estamos tratando de
mm,
implementar mucho más a
mm,
nivel regional,
and so that we
también
can
para Colombia.
implement it
Entonces, pues es esta
and
herramienta
implement
que
that for
son
Colombia.
5 pasos y 2
It's
fases
a
transversales. Les
5-step
voy a
tool
contar
and 2
solamente los
cross-cutting
5 pasos, pero
phases.
en el libro
Let me
van a
talk to you
poder
about the
ver
5
pues
phases,
como las
but in the
recomendaciones
book you
para
will
cada
see
paso y
all the
también para
recommendations for
las
each step
líneas transversales. Entonces,
for this cross-cutting
básicamente, pues,
axis.
y
So
como
basically,
diferenciador,
is a
tenemos una fase
differentiating
que se
aspect.
llama explorar,
We have a phase that's called
que
exploring,
tiene el objetivo de ser un
which has
checklist
the
o un
objective being
cuestionario
a
rápido
checklist,
para que las
basically,
ciudades
or a
entiendan
quick
su
questionnaire,
contexto, su
so that cities
oportunidad
can
en
solve their
función de
challenges and
implementar la
opportunities.
biodiversidad,
And everything has to do with
partiendo de
management and
4
biodiversity,
componentes
starting
principales,
with
que son
4 main
desde
components,
lo, digamos,
which
lo que es la gestión
that
integral
start
de la
from what's the
biodiversidad
comprehensive management
en
of
una ciudad luego
biodiversity.
avanzar, que es conocimiento, generar
First one,
conocimiento e innovación
knowledge,
para la gestión de la
knowledge
biodiversidad y crear
innovation.
instrumentos que permitan que esa gestión
That
pues, se
allow
dé en el
instrument that will
largo
allow
plazo,
for this
inversión
management
en
to be done
biodiversidad
in
y
the long term,
participación y todo el tema de la
and
gobernanza. Entonces, son los
participation
4
and governance.
componentes y es un cuestionario
So
muy
main
general,
components,
pero a partir de esto la ciudad ya puede
and
entender como el
the
nivel
city
en el que se
can
encuentra, conocer sus
understand
oportunidades y abordarlas de
and
manera
challenges and
exitosa.
opportunities.
Luego tenemos la fase de analizar, que es básicamente un
Then
diagnóstico
we
que
have the
muy
analysis
comúnmente
phase.
muchas ciudades pues aplican en su gestión
That many
y su
cities
planificación
apply in their
normalmente. En
management
este
and
caso
planning.
pues
In
generamos
this case,
metodologías para
we create
entender
methodologies
las
to
especies, ¿cierto? La
understand
biodiversidad, la
species,
dimensión de especies, la
um,
identificación de ecosistemas
the
estratégicos que la ciudad
identification
debe
of the
gestionar
strategic
y también
ecosystems
los
and
beneficios.
management,
Aquí
and
está el
also
ejemplo pues de ciudades
benefits.
colombianas que han
So we have the role
identificado
of Colombian
las
cities that have
especies clave que
identified
tienen
this
y la
key species that
distribución,
they have
otros
and its
análisis más
distribution.
desde el tema de servicios ecosistémicos,
So
por ejemplo,
everything has to
como
do
la,
with ecosystem
la
services
capacidad de enfriamiento o mitigación
and
de ese
capability,
calor, y también un componente muy importante asociado a la gobernanza.
and everything that's
Entonces, en
linked to
esta fase se
governance as
espera que
well.
las
So
ciudades
in this phase, we are expecting cities
generen insumos técnicos e
to
información
create
base
technical
para priorizar
input,
metas,
based
objetivos
information,
y acciones
prioritize objectives,
a
goals,
largo
and
plazo.
actions in the long term.
Luego tenemos la fase
Then
de priorizar,
we
que
have the
parte de esa visión
prioritization
a
phase
largo plazo, esa
that
visión
starts with
futura
a
y positiva,
long-term
que es
future
cierto
positive
que es base del
vision
desarrollo conceptual de la estrategia
that
de
it's a
biodiversidad.
conceptual development and
Ahí
strategy
pues no los voy a
biodiversity.
leer, pero pueden
Obviously,
consultarlo
I'm
en
not
el
going to
libro
read it right
y
now, but you
sobre esa
can
visión
look up
futura
the
también
book and on
entender
that future vision to
esas acciones y
understand,
áreas
really
estratégicos
understand
para priorizar
those actions to
considerando pues
prioritize
que las ciudades tienen poco
this,
recurso
considering the cities
y que
don't have
pues
enough resources,
periodos de
and
tiempo
that
de pronto de gobierno
are
muy
periods of
cortos,
time short government times, right? Government terms, 4 years, 3 years, some cities, I don't know, prioritize the implementation of walls and green terraces, but they don't identify the baseline territorial approach. So the idea of this prioritization phase is for the city to understand a step by step on how to make more this investment more effective in terms of biodiversity. Then we have the planning phase, as I mentioned before, just starting from the logic of any planification process and urban management. But in the tool, you're going to find something specific for biodiversity. And obviously, we provide them with tools, instruments, and mechanisms for decision making that can be useful so that can happen in the long term, 10 years, etc. For a particular government. In the case of Colombia, this is seen in ecosystem planning, trees, programs and programs that are integrated by development plans, local action plans that are really articulated with the agreement of biological biodiversity. But basically, it's how this is grounded in an action plan, and I bring it in with assessment and monitoring mechanisms, which is a challenge that cities have. Then implementing, obviously here we can see successful cases and some recommendations in regards to what it means to implement comprehensive projects from the biodiversity approach and nature-based solutions approach, MBS, how this impacts biodiversity, but especially what we mentioned before, multifunctionality. Once again, when there's not enough resources, how can we implement projects that will bring biodiversity to people in urban development? And it's being the most effective approach. In the case of Latin America, for example, we have a lot of green corridors as tools to improve biodiversity, clean mobility, and welfare of people. So how do we prioritize projects that will aim to those different functions? And some examples here. Here, I would like to highlight that Latin America already has a lot of experiences that maybe didn't come from the concept of nature-based solutions, but that are the baseline to create that implementation, right? Water harvest, co-creation and participative urban design, environmental education, participative science, adaptations based in ecosystems and communities, because that don't acknowledge that the concept of city. Now we're breaking the paradigm. And another key phase is that we have a particular annex that I would like to talk to you about for everything that to do with assessment and monitoring. In the local governments have a lot of challenges, to be honest, to see the real impact of these implementations, to monitor over time, and obviously we have seen, for example, we have a group of indicators based on two key conceptual frameworks so that we can have this comprehensively based on the change theory and the model of the state response benefit pressure model, PURB, based on the Spanish acronym, sorry, promotion of green infrastructure versus gray, but that doesn't necessarily talk to me about other processes as the benefits. So if people obviously having that and how it improves its response. In this case, we're talking about management, for example. So I don't want to dwell into this because it's really interesting, because indicators are complete in terms of what it means is biodiversity management and the state of the ecosystem, but also how people invest more and how these benefits increase to have more equality in access. And obviously you are going to find 38 indicators distributed in these categories of pressure, state benefit, and response. And we are trying to articulate this with indexes and global agendas that propose many of these objectives, as an urban nature index that was just promoted by IUCN, or the Singapore index of the CBD. So it's been about grounding this and to municipalities, etc., so that cities can choose whatever indicators they want.
básicos
They're
y
divided between
complementarios para
basic
que todos
indicators and
estén listos,
complementary
pero pues
indicators,
digamos que
because there's a whole
con
bunch of them,
diferentes metodologías
and
para
with
que
different
cualquier estado
methodologies so
pueda
that any
implementar.
city can implement
Y
them.
ya aquí pues resaltar también
And
las
that will be it
potencias
for
que
me.
tienen algunas iniciativas
We
como
have
la
the
sesión
potential,
participativa o las
this
plataformas de
participate
datos
sessions,
abiertos para que las
open
municipalidades
data
puedan
platform so that
avanzar en ese
municipalities can
monitoreo que es
move
tan
forward in
importante
that
para
many
dar conformidad a los procesos.
in these processes.
Y ya, y acá pues dentro
And
del
here,
QR de la plataforma
this is the
de
QR code of
presentación
the
que van a poder
platform
encontrar todas las
where
publicaciones
you
que
can
les conté,
find all the
que ya
papers that I just
Juana ha
mentioned,
compartido por acá los
but I think
enlaces.
Juana has shared
Y
that with you.
perdón si aceleré
And I'm
mucho,
sorry
pero
if I
es
took too
como
long
para darles una
and
visión
if I went
general de
so
esta herramienta que,
fast,
como les digo,
but
pues
it's just
tiene
to
este
provide you with
desarrollo
that
para
tool.
Colombia, pero creo que
So
tiene
we
el
can have
potencial
development for
de
Colombia,
implementarse en
the
varias ciudades
potential of
de
implemented
Colombia.
in many cities of Latam. Thank you.
Muchísimas gracias, Diana.
Thank you very
Realmente se
much,
ve que es
Diana.
una herramienta
We can
súper
really
clara y
see
muy útil
that this
para
is
que se
really
pueda
useful
aplicar en
tool
diferentes
so
ciudades.
that we can replicate it
Como
in different
dijiste,
cities.
ya incluimos el
As
link
you
en el
said
chat
before,
para
we
quien quiera
already
ver la
included it in the
aplicación.
chat for everyone that
Bueno,
wants to see good
muchísimas
details.
gracias, Diana y Javier. Realmente
Once again,
vemos
thank
que
you very
hay
much,
ejemplos
Diana and
muy
Javier.
interesantes en diferentes
I see that
ciudades
there's
de
many
muchas
interesting
regiones
examples in many
y
cities in
podemos
many
utilizar
regions,
esas lecciones
and we
aprendidas
can take
para
those lessons learned
intercambiar
to
experiencias
further
entre regiones,
exchange
¿no?
experiences
Bueno,
among the regions.
quisiera ahora pasar a los 3 casos de estudio que muestran
Now,
cómo
I'd
la
like to move on to
biodiversidad
the
se
next
gestiona
case
y
studies and
activa
see
en
how
territorios
the
urbanos
city
reales. Veremos enfoques
monitors everything
diversos,
in real time.
intervenciones participativas en barcos
We have
rurales,
participative interventions based on strategic systems and global platforms to integrate nature into cities. This shows that nature integration into urban planning is extremely beneficial. We have Daniel Kozak, who is the head of the research center in the school of architecture in Buenos Aires University. I'm sorry, the sound cuts off for me, so excuse me. But he is the head of urban planning. He's an associate professor in the Washington University and an invited teacher in Columbia University. He has worked with IDB and in the EU, the CAF. He leads transdisciplinary teams in urban projects regarding planning and environmental applications. And he also works in nature-based solutions for resilient cities before facing climate change. He will now be presenting the first case study, which is about transformative urban coalitions. Thank you, Daniel. Please go ahead. Please, you may take the floor.
Muchas gracias, Natalia, y muchas gracias.
Thank you, Natalia, and thank you to IDB for the invitation to this stage. I am very glad to be sharing this space with you. As Natalia was saying, I am going to make a very brief presentation of a work that is about to conclude, but which began in 2021. This was within a larger project, which is the Transformative Urban Coalitions, set out by the International Climate Initiative. Within this framework, we have been working with the IIED coordination for Latin America, from the Center for Research that I lead, in alliance with many other institutions and organs, as you can see on the slide, and many neighborhood associations, and I will delve deeper in that as much as I can. And an introduction. So here we have Villavente. This is a 48-hectare slum
habitantes,
with
en
30,000
9.600
inhabitants,
familias, en
9,400
4.600 viviendas. Es decir, que tiene un
families.
índice de hacinamiento
So
muy
there,
alto,
it has a very large,
10 veces más alto que el
it,
promedio
it is
de la ciudad,
far too many
del
people
orden
in
de
far too little space.
14,3% en el barrio,
So,
mientras que el promedio de la ciudad de Buenos
so
Aires
and
es
the
del
average of
1,5%.
Buenos Aires is
Como pueden ver
1.5%, so this in comparison
en
is
esta
very
imagen,
complicated. As you can see in this
una
image,
falta de espacios verdes públicos en general, falta
we have
de
a lack of
vegetación,
public
y
spaces,
ese es uno de los puntos principales sobre el
and
que
this is one of the
queremos insistir
main
con el proyecto.
issues that where we wanted to have an effect
El espacio
on the space.
participativo, que ese es uno de los ejes principales
The
del
participative
proyecto,
space,
se
which is one of the main
constituyó
aims of the
en
project, we
una mesa
constituted
participativa que venía
a
trabajando
participation
en
table
el barrio desde el
that have been
comienzo
working in the
del
neighborhood since the
proyecto
beginning of the
integral de
project
reurbanización del barrio
for the
IPBES
comprehensive
desde 2016,
reintegration of
es decir,
the
cuando en el 2021
neighborhood
llega
in
el proyecto
2016.
con
So
una metodología
when the
de
project
laboratorios urbanos,
arrived
una
in
forma
2021
que
with
estaban
urban
llevando
labs,
adelante en otros casos de estudio
which is a tool that has been used
México
in other
y
case
Brasil,
studies, such as in
se
Mexico and
sumó
Brazil.
a este espacio participativo
It was
que
added
venía en
to this
marcha, que era
participative
la
space,
mesa ambiental,
which
a
was
la
the
que le sumó
environmental
mucho
table,
contenido y
to which it
otras
provided a
visiones,
lot more
sobre todo la que tiene que ver
content
con la acción
and
climática, que
a
no
far
era uno de
a
los
broader
ejes de
vision,
trabajo en el
particularly
barrio.
regarding
El
climate work.
laboratorio urbano está
The urban
coordinado
lab
por
is coordinated
el IDB
by
América Latina,
by
participa
IED
el
Latin
IBC, el
America.
Centro de Vivienda de la Ciudad,
We have
y
the
otras oficinas de
Housing
gobierno
Institute of
local.
Buenos Aires and other parts of
Nosotros
the
desde el CIE
local
somos
government.
parte del
Us from
equipo
CIE,
técnico,
we
junto
are in the
a un equipo
technical
también
team.
de arquitectos urbanistas,
We are
paisajistas, y de
a
acuerdo
team
a las
of architects who
necesidades de
are
cada uno de
also
los
urban
proyectos
planners
también
and
van
landscapers, and we
variando.
help the project
Bueno,
with variety and
algo que me parece
other
virtuoso
contributions.
de este
Something
proyecto
that
es
I
que
think is
todas las
very
decisiones
good
de lo
about
que
this
vamos a
project is
ver
that all the decisions that of what we will be seeing in this brief presentation are made within the framework of this urban lab, which is largely participative, as I mentioned. Most of the meetings are held in the neighborhood, such as in the primary public school or at IHACE offices right there, or at the offices of the Ministries for Human Development, or in other places depending on what is necessary. We sometimes will do smaller workshops with the stakeholders who are directly involved in all the interventions, always seeking to increase participation and in order to be very transparent. Very early on the project, we decided on the broader way to approach the interventions. So we considered several climate projects that could be included within the umbrella of the project in the neighborhood, and based on the consensual decision made at the urban lab, we saw some nature-based solutions working with public spaces in the neighborhood, prioritizing public spaces with larger capacity to create benefits for the largest amount of people in the neighborhood. For example, one of the first premises, well, one of the first issues that we tackled was the lack of green spaces in the neighborhood. So we tried to revitalize and to conserve the existing neighborhood and to make it into a part of the project. Here you have a drawing, and you see what was the intent. So this is the first thing that was brought to the table to see what kind of interventions we could do. There are many tools of the lab and in the toolbox of nature-based solutions for urban spaces. So we wanted to revitalize the existing trees and plants, and to turn this place into from a place that has so very few trees and plants in such a key area of the city that is so near the center. And we have, as you can see, we have trees and balconies decorated with plants and rain gardens and so on as well. Within the project, we could talk about three proposed dimensions, which were mostly about sensitization, or awareness raising, and creating data collection. I will be talking about this last dimension, just so I don't run over in time. If you want more information, you can access the project website and you have the different publications. Within this dimension, we also decided on different projects of different scales, tackling the different fronts and the cooperatives and the organization capacities of organizations in the neighborhood. We wanted an equitable distribution in order to generate employment across the entire area. This is a particularly strong tenet in the Villavente project, and we wanted to do a larger intervention so that everybody could be included. And so this is like a broad overview. So you have here these 4 plans. The first one you can see is the first one we made. This is an alley from the new in the new apartment complex built for the relocated people. We have the patios and the streets, and the rainforest absorption capacities were included in the area. In one of these corridors or the alleys, we had some green, but very little. There are some other passages where there was no green at all. However, there was a possibility to add a lot more vegetation, and particularly native vegetation, which is important for biodiversity management and to improve the quality of the public spaces. Here we have a new installation that we made, and with all the vegetation on it. We made collective days of planting, where we have people participating. These are collective knowledge opportunities and teaching opportunities, and so we wanted to show you something that we had things that have been planned and have been very useful. We actually had one of these last week with a smaller passageway. I didn't include that, but we did have it. The second example here is at a similar scale, at a similar passageway. This is the Macizo area, which is a very densely populated urban area in the historic area of the neighborhood. This is a participative workshop. We have some montages with collages and different ways to decide and to visualize what we can do. So you have the photo on the left, which is completely not dry, and the proposal on the right. So we proposed several ideas to introduce vegetation. Some, due to regulatory limitations, some couldn't be made. Of course, we need to keep with that. And in the end, you have the result in the far right. We also had collective planting activities, and there is also a kindergarten, and so we had the children from that. So we have here a larger scale. This is the intent at a primary school, which was also built within the context of the urbanization reintegration project. This is the same model as we saw in the passageway. and we installed it in order to
un diseño con materiales muy accesibles, con
make a design with very accessible materials,
del barrio lo
with
pudiéramos construir,
that could be built in local foundries, with particularly large interaction with the school population.
que recibe radiación
This
solar
is a patio that receives solar radiation
plena,
directly.
un patio que se vuelve muy inhabitable, muy inhóspito en
It
verano.
becomes very inhospitable during the summer, of course, and with these spaces of shade and vegetation, it will be a little more comfortable, and it remains useful and usable for longer periods of time. And the last example, and the larger scale, actually, the largest in scale, wants to include all the work fronts so that they can work in an articulated manner, and we did variations of the same works that I just mentioned, the same passageways as you can see here, with after the vegetation has grown, and we also see the planting of different trees and flowers. We used a block using recycled materials, and we have many other resources. This is my last slide. This is synthesizing the benefits. And so first of all, adding new green spaces and revitalized spaces with native vegetation mainly. This has a positive effect on the capture of carbon dioxide, which is one of the goals of the project, which is within the framework of the climate action project. And this is done in a twofold way: in the direct capacity of the vegetation to capture carbon dioxide, as well as by reducing the temperature, having an incidence on the neighboring spaces. We have fresher and greener spaces. It also has an incidence in the thermal regulation with lesser use of AC. And so we have thermal comfort added both outside and inside, based on some polls that we ran both in the intervened passageways and in others that were used as witness cases. We see the cases of sidewalks. These areas become more attractive to the public at large, so they are perceived as safer based on those polls. In general, there is a high level of satisfaction regarding these interventions. There is also an increase of absorbing surfaces, and I could continue speaking about direct benefits, so I will leave it up to here. And in any case, you can ask me about it in the Q&A. Thank you.
Muchísimas gracias, Daniel. Realmente
Thank you,
un
Daniel.
proyecto súper interesante.
This is
Que
a
lograron
really
hacer
interesting
eso de la mano de la
project, and
comunidad,
it's great that you managed to do that
después ver
with
el
the community,
resultado, ¿no? El antes
and
y el
then to see
después de
the
cada
results,
trecho de ese barrio, con todos los
and
beneficios
to
que
see
trae.
how it
Realmente muy
positively
interesante.
impacted the neighborhood.
Felicitaciones y muchas
So
gracias
it's
por
really
la
interesting and
participación.
great. Thank you for your presentation, Daniel.
Ahora invito a Diego Rada.
Now I
Diego
invite
Rada es
Diego
el
Rada,
gerente
who
de
is the
desarrollo urbano
sub-manager
de
of
Dubar,
urban
Barranquilla.
development in
Es
Dubar,
ingeniero civil de la
Barranquilla. He's a
Universidad
civil
del Norte,
engineer
con
from
magíster en
Norte
ingeniería
University
civil
with
de la
a
misma
master's degree
institución.
in
Profesional
civil
con más
engineering
de
from the same
14 años de
university. He has
experiencia
been working
laboral en
for
el
over
sector
14
público y
years in the
privado,
public
enfocado en el
and
desarrollo
private
urbano y
sectors
gestión de
in
proyectos de infraestructura.
urban development
Con
and
una sólida
infrastructure projects.
formación
He has a
académica y
solid
experiencia
academic
práctica,
training and practical
ha desarrollado habilidades para
training.
liderar
He
equipos
has
y
developed
gestionar
team
proyectos
leadership
complejos,
abilities
siempre
to
buscando
lead
soluciones innovadoras y
complex
sostenibles para
projects, with
buscar un
searching for
equilibrio entre el
innovating
sentido
solutions
social
to find
de los
balance
proyectos y
between
el impacto
the
ambiental
social
que
and
tienen.
environmental
Diego
balance of
nos va a
projects.
presentar el
Diego
segundo
will
caso de
be
estudio,
presenting the
que es
second
sobre
case
la
study,
recuperación
which is
integral
about
de
the
las
comprehensive
ciénagas de
recovery
Mallorquín,
of the
una
Ciénaga de
conexión
Mallorquín,
rural-urbana en
an
Barranquilla
urban
que
and rural
transforma la
connection
sociedad.
in Barranquilla that is aiming
Bienvenido,
to
Diego,
transform society.
y adelante
Welcome,
con tu
Diego, and
presentación. Muchas
please,
gracias.
you have the floor.
Buenos días, gracias a todos, gracias Natalia.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Natalia, and thank you for having me.
Agradecidos por habernos tenido en cuenta al distrito de
Thank,
Barranquilla y
thank
a
you
lo
for
que se
taking
hace
the
en este
Barranquilla
espacio.
district into
Voy a
account.
proceder a proyectar la presentación.
I will now share my screen.
¿Me confirman, por favor, que ya pueden ver todo?
Can you confirm that everybody sees?
Ahora sí.
Listo. Bueno, a ver, este proyecto en particular, digamos que tengo
So for
una
this
conexión
project,
especial con
I
el
have
proyecto porque lo tomé
it's very
desde el
dear
día
to my
cero
heart because I have been
hasta
working
la
in it
operación que
from
tenemos hoy
day zero
en las fases
up
que ya
until
tenemos
where we
ejecutadas.
are today and
Por
all
eso,
the
digamos, me
phases we have
apasiona un
executed. So
poco y
I
me
am very
disculpan si me
passionate
extiendo en
about
algunas
this,
cosas.
and I apologize in advance
Digamos, el
if I
vínculo
go
laboral
over a little
y
bit,
emocional que
if
tengo
I
con
go
este
over
proyecto,
timing
porque de
some
verdad
things
que
because I
se
really
hizo un
love this
trabajo
project,
especial,
as
no
this
solo en
was a
términos de
special
infraestructura,
work
sino
not
en términos
only
sociales.
regarding infrastructure
Entonces,
but socially.
este proyecto lo nombramos así, Conexión Rural Urbana,
We named it as a rural urban
como
connection
herramienta que
project,
transforma la sociedad,
as a
ya
tool
que
transforming society, as
Barranquilla es una ciudad, los que han tenido la oportunidad de venir acá,
Barranquilla
de
is a
vivir acá,
city, if you have
saben que es
ever
una ciudad muy
managed to visit
urbanizada, una
or
zona
if
que
you live here,
tiene
it is a
unos
very
espacios
urban
verdes que se
city.
han venido recuperando,
And it
pero que
has green areas that
teníamos
have been
dos tesoros
under recovery, but we
o
have
tres tesoros escondidos
actually three
que
treasures,
siempre
hidden
estuvimos
treasures,
digamos, dándole la espalda a esos
and we
espacios
were
y
always
que hoy,
ignoring them.
gracias a esa visión de ciudad que se ha
Nowadays,
venido
thanks to
desarrollando
the
en la
vision
última década,
of a city that we have been developing in the last
ha
decade,
planteado, digamos, tener una óptica y una visión hacia esos
this has
tres
asked us to
espacios,
take
son los cuerpos de agua
a
que
closer
bañan
look to
hoy la
these
ciudad de
three
Barranquilla, que son el río
water
Magdalena,
bodies that are so important for the
la
city, which
ciénaga
are the
de
Magdalena
Mallorquín
River,
y el Mar
the
Caribe.
Ciénaga de
Entonces,
Mallorquín,
si se dan cuenta
and the
esta imagen
Caribbean Sea.
que
If
podemos
you
ver,
can see
vemos
here
a la ciudad de
on the
Barranquilla,
right, you have
una ciudad
Barranquilla, the city,
bastante
which is a
urbanizada,
particularly urbanized city.
bastante urbanizada. Todo esto, esta densificación
All of
de
this, you can
ciudad,
see the density of the
no
city.
permite que el barranquillero tenga
And
algún contacto
that
con
volume of
algunos espacios
concentration
que hoy
doesn't
la
allow
naturaleza nos ha dado
people from
y
Barranquilla to
que
really
quizás
appreciate everything that nature has given to
esta
us.
apuesta haya sido una de las más revulsivas en cuanto a
And so this intervention has been one of the most revolutionary ones that we have done, and one of the most innovative things that this project has aimed. So here in green you have the perimeter of the Mallorquín swamp or ciénaga, which is a rural area. It is neighbored by two areas. You have the La Playa township, which is to the left, and then we have the Las Flores neighborhood, which is to the right, next to the Ciénaga. To describe this swamp, it has about 800 hectares, approximately. 65% of that is water covered, and the other 35% has mangroves. Its maximum depth is of 1.3 meters, as we have checked, and if you see, this is basically a magical corner, which I don't know how many cities will have this, and I'm sure it's not more than three. We have the biggest biggest river in the country that goes into the Caribbean. We are a river city. So as you can see, the Magdalena River is right there at the right, and then to the north of the city and in the region in general, we have the Caribbean Sea, and then we have the swamp. This is the magic spot, so to speak. So if we went there physically to this, and in this point, this part of the tip that I'm seeing here, you have the conjunction of the three spaces and the three water bodies. And it's important to say that this is a water body that is part of the Rizal agreement of protected spaces that we have in the cities. We have some of the background. These are some of the new species that I found in order to show the concern the city was under regarding the Ciénaga de Mallorquín, which was dying. And we identified a potential to create environmental practices that had been developing in the session. And there we had four projects. And we have, again, as I mentioned, some local news stories. And this was raised a concern, and so we aim to have a larger institutional presence in this sector of Barranquilla. So the final aim was to protect these spaces. So as I mentioned, this project is very dear to my heart, not only because of the infrastructure, which is, I find wonderful, because it had some engineering challenges that we managed to overcome, but also socially, which is what I want to focus on today, and which is the subject of this entire meeting. So first of all, we have the master plan of the Barranquilla plan for the recovery of the Mallorquín Ciénaga. We have 17 points, all within, not all of them, excuse me, are environmental execution projects. This master plan, which we hope to execute by phases because it's very ambitious, in particularly regarding projects, not just in the environment, but also structurally. Currently, these 5 that are in red are currently running. We have the Puerto Mocho Beach, which is a natural barrier that was formed, or that has been formed through the years, maybe since the 2000s. We have this physical barrier which has created movement depending both in the dynamics of the sea and the river. And with the works that we did, we managed to stabilize this area, which I will show you in images shortly. Then we have the FACA remediation project, which was done by the municipal authority at the departmental level. This area was developed in order to improve the water quality of the area. We have this third project, which is the tourist train, which is aiming to improve the western Tajamar area, these are some areas that were protected in order to stabilize this area, the area which was built. This was built about 100 years ago. So we wanted to project that area even more broadly. We had the functional units 1 and 2 of the Eco Park. The others are beginning construction. And we see the institutional presence that is here, and the reduction of the invasions, as well as reducing the smells and of other negative indexes that we could find there. From the key objectives that we have, we're not only talking about the recovery of the Ciénaga, but also of the neighboring areas. We have nearly 30,000 inhabitants between the La Playa township and the Las Flores neighborhood, as I showed you, near the Ciénaga. And so the district or the mayor's office are bound or need to create conditions that allow people to reach these projects, but to improve the life quality of the people who live in these neighboring areas. So we have a lack of there was a lack of public services in some areas, which are being worked on and are improving. This institutional presence brings safety to the community,
toda la oferta institucional que hay, las
We have the
oportunidades a nivel
institutional
educativo,
offer with
los
at the
proyectos
educational
lo que se entiende,
level
los de salud, los proyectos
and
culturales
health,
también en el
culture,
sector.
and cultural areas, among
Y por
other
supuesto
sectors.
la conexión de las
And
vías
then, of
para
course, there
garantizar
is
la fluidez y el
the connection
funcionamiento y
of the roads to improve the execution and functioning
mejorar las
of,
condiciones de la gente
and
del sector.
to improve the conditions of the
Entonces
people
aquí hay
living
un
in the
poco
area.
del antes y el después.
Here you have a before and
Un pequeño
after.
video, el de arriba, pueden ver cómo
So,
eran las condiciones antes y el de ahora.
You see the former conditions in the video on the top right, and now and below you see the real life contrast. You see the artisanal way in which people lived. So this is Porto Mocho Beach. Below is not a rendering. This is an actual video. This is operative already. It's already working. So this is real footage of Puerto Mocho Beach. And so the great benefit for the district was first to take these people who were working informally or artisanally in the sector and then to train them not just in how to managing food, but also community tourism with bilingual training. And we had several trainings to guarantee that this project was reached the success that it has reached today. Regarding visits, we have had over 600,000 people as of the first year. So this is a project which has had a special impact in the work that we did in the last year. This is the Las Flores neighborhood. Here we have the train station, and on the before, so the new constructed area is the area that is empty in the video above. So here below, this is where we have the train moving to the Tamahar, to the western Tamahar. Here we have the Marroquín area. And this again, I have to stress, the footage that you're seeing below is again true, is actual time, is actually constructed. This is not a render. So I'm sorry to cut you off, but you have just a couple minutes. Diego? Yes. This is the functional unit number 2 of the Eco Park. So how do we connect with the community with this master plan? All 35,000 people, we integrated them socially. We had artisanal trains, as you can see here in the Tajamar. Those people were trained, they received compensation, and in addition, they were trained to invest resources due to the we compensated for the losses from the loss of the most amount that they had. We involved the manpower in the area for this project, and so they were also included in the development of the work. Regarding motor taxis, we also had trainings not only on road safety but also on licenses, taxes, fines, and the district was with them and worked with them all throughout this operation. The fishermen, not only in Las Flores but in the beach at large, were given proper fishing equipment so that they could do their work properly. Here we also have working at the beach. How we managed flora and fauna? Well, we had cleaning days, and not only from people who were working, people included in the works, but with different public offices, the Ladimar company, which is the maritime direction entity, AAA, which is a cleaning entity, and they all work together with us with many to carry out cleaning works and to water quality studies, flora and fauna management, rescue, and habitat conservation. All of this was done with these environmental entities. We saw mangrove replanting to help with reforestation.
jornadas de limpieza, que hay un poco más de la
Here we have
jornada de limpieza.
some more pictures of the
Y bueno,
cleaning.
hoy el proyecto en operación,
And today,
el Ecoparque 7
currently,
de Mallorquín en particular,
the Eco Park
tiene los
area
distintos
specifically
espacios
has
que hoy
the
están en
distinct
funcionamiento,
spaces that
que hoy
are
se le da un
already working,
acompañamiento a
which
la
has
gente
an
con
accompaniment
unos guías
today
operarios
with
debidamente
operation
capacitados.
tour guides who are fully
Todo
trained.
este avistamiento de aves, todo este
We have
senderismo que se ha venido desarrollando
bird
en el
watching
proyecto,
included
ha
in the
sido, digamos,
project.
se ha generado una óptica o una visión
This has
de
created
turismo ambiental y
an
aviaria,
environmental
que es,
tourism
digamos,
and
algo que nos ha puesto en
bird
este
watching
sector.
tourism that has
Entonces, un
really
poco del sector
revitalized this
tenemos
sector.
baños, gastronomía,
We have
todo lo
restaurants, we
local,
have
todos los
toilets, we
emprendimientos
have
que se
all the
encuentran actualmente en el proyecto son
all
gente del
the
sector.
companies
No
or
hay
all the
ninguna empresa
entrepreneurs
que
that are
sea
here
externa, no hay
are
nada que corresponda a un
are
privado,
these are all
todo
run by
del sector,
entrepreneurs.
todo
There's not a
gente
large
de
company
la
that is
playa,
involved here.
toda la gente,
These are
todo
all near the
gente del
beach,
sector de las flores.
all with people from
Y un
Las
poco del
Flores.
loop de avistamiento de aves que también
This is the
permite
bird watching
generar ese
loop,
turismo
which
aviario.
allows the bird
También
watching
tenemos juegos
tourism.
náuticos sin motor para no afectar
We
el
have
ecosistema.
Ports without
Poco
motors
más,
so
bueno,
as not to affect the
ciclorobandas,
environment.
ciclorrutas en el sector,
We
como
have
la imagen,
biking
la zona de la
routes,
unidad funcional
and
2.
you have the functional
Y
unit number
también,
2.
y bueno, ¿y qué viene? Ya con
And
esto
what's
cerramos
coming?
lo que
And
viene.
just to
Tenemos
close,
unos proyectos
what's
de,
ahead? We have
de
some projects
recuperación ambiental,
for
de
environmental
saneamiento
recovery.
de la,
We have the
del
sanitation
arroyo
project
León, que es uno
of
de los
the Leon Creek,
afluentes que
which is
contribuye con mayor agua dulce,
one of the largest
la Ciénaga de Mallorquín. No solamente
one of the largest
las descargas que
water
este genera,
contributors to the
sino
Ciénaga.
toda la cuenca, es decir, desde
So we are going to clean
donde
the
inicia el
entire
arroyo,
basin. So
todo el
from the
tema
beginning of the creek,
mejora de la calidad de agua para que los vertimientos que se
we are
den
going
en
to
esta
improve the
cuenca
water
del agua
quality from the beginning so that
sean
all
de
the
la
water
mejor
that is
calidad para no
that
alterar
comes
los productos
into the
ecológicos
swamp of
que
the
se
Ciénaga
realizan.
is of
También
better
tenemos el
quality.
cierre de un botadero que
We
se,
also have the close
pues,
of a
obviamente
dump,
por muchos años se generó.
which
Tenemos
of
el
course
tema de
generated a lot
recuperación
of
de la orilla de la
pollution.
Ciénaga, que hay
We
muchas
are
inversiones,
recovering
en este sector también,
the
que se llama el
shore
sector de la
at the
Cangrejera,
Ciénaga.
y
We
el
also have
mejoramiento
the
de
improvement
conectividad,
of the
servicios públicos,
Cangrejera area
mejoramiento
and the
de vivienda
connection of
y
housing and public
las
connection
vías que se están
and
desarrollando
the
en estas
improvement
dos
of the
zonas.
roads that are being developed in these two
Excelente,
areas.
Diego.
Thank
Muchísimas
you,
gracias, de
Diego.
verdad.
Sorry to cut you off.
Quisiera dejarte mucho más tiempo,
I would like to
pero
give you far
realmente
more
estamos
time,
muy sobre el
but we
tiempo.
are very tight on schedule.
Impresionante la cantidad de beneficios ambientales,
It's
pero
impressive
también
the amount of
sociales de este
environmental
proyecto,
and social
¿no?
benefits of the
Impresionante el
project.
impacto social y ver que ya está construido.
It's
Muchísimas
amazing to see
gracias
that
por tu
everything has been built.
participación.
Thank you, Diego, for
Quisiera
your
dar la
participation.
palabra ahora a Claudia
Now, I
Mistelli,
want to give
directora
the
asociada de
floor to
In the
Claudia
Nature
Mistelli,
of Cities,
Associate
TENOC,
Director
como
of
comunicadora
TENOC,
ambiental y diseñadora social.
as
Claudia
environmental
impulsa
communicator and
proyectos que
social
integren
designer.
creatividad,
She
conocimiento
works in
científico y
projects that
participación ciudadana
include
para construir
citizens and
mejores
have
ciudades y
social
territorios para la
benefits to build
naturaleza y
better
todas las
cities for
personas.
nature and people.
TENOC es una organización internacional
TENOC
que
is
promueve
an
ciudades más
international
verdes, justas y habitables
an
a través del
international
intercambio
body that
transdisciplinario
works
entre
with
ciencia, arte,
transdisciplinary
política y acción
exchange
comunitaria.
between
Desde
climate
TENOC
and
desarrolla herramientas de
science action and
comunicación,
community actions.
experiencias de aprendizaje y
She, lead,
metodologías que
she leads
acercan el
methodologies
conocimiento a gobiernos locales,
methodologies
comunidades
that
y fondos.
approach
También
the
coordina
knowledge to local
iniciativas
governments,
globales
communities,
sobre
and the
soluciones
youth. She
basadas
also
en la
coordinates global
naturaleza,
initiatives on
particularmente dentro
nature-based
del proyecto
solutions, in
europeo,
particular within the
Network
European
Nature.
Project Network
Claudia
Nature.
va a presentar
Claudia
el tercer
will be
caso de
presenting the
estudio,
third
que es sobre
case
el
study,
Festival
which is
de
about
Nature of Cities.
the Nature of
Claudia,
Cities
muchas
Festival.
gracias por tu
Claudia,
participación.
thank you so much for
Agradezco
joining
mucho
us.
si pudieras presentar en máximo 8 minutos, por favor.
If you could make a presentation
supuesto.
in
No,
8
bueno,
minutes
antes que
tops,
nada,
it would be great.
gracias, Natalia,
So
por
first
esta
of all,
maravillosa
thank you,
introducción
Natalia,
y
for
a
that
la
wonderful
IDB y a
introduction,
todo el
and
equipo
thank you to
por la
IDB
invitación. Voy
and
a
for your
compartir la
invitation.
pantalla.
I will share my screen now.
Y uy, un momento.
I'm sorry, give me 1 second.
Ay. Uy, estoy teniendo problemas para compartir la
I'm having
pantalla.
issues
Un
to
segundo.
share my screen. Give me 1 second, excuse me.
Perfecto, ya se ve.
Ok,
Ahora ya
There we
tengo
go.
mi presentación. Adelante. Muchas gracias.
muy bien. Puedes ver el poder de unir ciencia, arte y práctica. Ok, perfecto. Pues bueno, muchísimas gracias a todos. Vengo hoy a compartir uno de los
So thank
proyectos,
you.
digamos, más
I'm going to share one of the most
emblemáticos de The
emblematic
Nature of
projects that
Cities.
we have in the Nature of Cities.
Ese proyecto se llama el Festival de la Naturaleza de las
So we
Ciudades.
have the festival, the
Tiene
Nature
esa
of Cities
filosofía
Festival.
de unir
It
ciencia,
has the
arte,
philosophy
y
of
práctica y
joining
muchas
science,
voces.
art, and
Y para
practices,
nosotros este
and many
festival
voices.
no es solo
So
un
this
evento,
festival is
sino
not
que
just
también
an event.
es un espacio vivo que demuestra
It's a
cómo la
living,
biodiversidad
breathing
urbana
space that shows
se
how
puede gestionar
urban
mejor cuando muchas
city,
formas de conocimiento
how
pueden
urban
dialogar
nature
juntas.
and
Cuando
urban
creamos,
spaces work when
esas
they
condiciones para que
when
actores
it leads
que
to
normalmente no se
conversation,
encuentran puedan
and
imaginar
when
y
we have
construir juntos.
stakeholders that don't usually meet can work together and build together.
Entonces, a ver, ¿cómo podemos, entonces para nosotros, cómo podemos lograr ese diálogo
How can we
transdisciplinario,
achieve
¿no?
that
Que
this
muchas veces
transdisciplinary
es muy
dialogue
sencillo.
that isn't very
Pues aquí
easy
la
to do?
idea es
Well,
poder reunir
the
a
idea
personas
here is to
a disciplinas muy diferentes
put together
en
people
un
from
mismo
many
espacio
different
y que dialoguen.
spaces and
Es
disciplines
decir,
so
ecólogos
that they
con
can
planificadores,
talk to
artistas
ecologists
con
with planners,
diseñadores,
artists,
gestores
designers,
culturales,
cultural
con expertos en
managers,
políticas públicas.
public policy
Y para
experts,
nosotros,
and so on.
este diálogo transdisciplinar
And for us, this
desbloquea
transdisciplinary
algo que es
dialogue
fundamental
is key.
que es fundamental y que es esa capacidad de ver los retos urbanos
Something
no
also
como
key is
bloques aislados, sino como
the ability to
tejidos
see urban planning
interdependientes.
as
Por ejemplo,
interdependent
un artista
activities.
visual
So, for
puede
example,
ayudar a que un
a
ecólogo
visual artist can
comunique
help an
mejor la
ecologist
urgencia de
better
restaurar un río urbano.
convey the
O
need
un líder
to
comunitario
restore a
puede
river,
aportar
or for
memoria
a community
territorial,
leader
conocimiento
can
del uso del
show
suelo que no
territorial
aparece
memory or
en un
soil
mapa
use
técnico,
that doesn't
¿no?
appear on a
O
technical
un
map.
planificador municipal puede reconocer que
A
la
municipal
regulación
planner can
necesita,
recognize that
nuevas formas
regulation needs new
de
ways
participación.
of participation,
Entonces,
and so on.
esa es la idea del festival,
So
¿no?
that's the
Traer
point
todas
of the
estas
festival,
voces en un
to
mismo
bring
lugar.
all of these
Y,
voices into one
y
place.
y quería compartir también uno de estos, un ejemplo práctico
I wanted to
que
show
fue
a
el año
practical
pasado,
example that we had last
en
year
el festival en el 2024 en
during
Berlín,
the 2024
donde,
festival in
donde
Berlin,
el gobierno de Berlín,
where the
el Ministerio
government
de
of
Medio
Berlin
Ambiente
and
y de
the
Transporte
Ministry for the
fue uno de
Environment
los,
and
digamos, de los que
Transportation
más nos apoyaron en llegar
was one of our
a
biggest
llevar el festival a
supporters
la ciudad.
in taking the
Pero
festival
ese
to the
apoyo
city.
también fue muy interesante porque
However,
ellos
that
no solamente
support was
fueron,
very interesting,
no solamente dieron un apoyo
not just
técnico
because they
y
provided
económico,
technical and economic
también
support,
utilizaron
but because they
el
used
festival
the festival
como una plataforma para compartir sus
as a
propios
platform
retos
to
de
share
ciudad
their
en
own
temas de
challenges
biodiversidad.
as a city regarding
Y
biodiversity.
podemos compartirlo con una audiencia
And we
global,
managed to share
muy
it with
amplia,
a very
muy
broad,
diversa,
global, very broad
completamente
and diverse
multidisciplinaria.
global
Y de esa manera, pues,
audience,
también,
which was very
salir
multidisciplinary.
como un poco
And
de esos
so
hilos
that allowed
y
us to
poder nutrirse
everybody
de
to
muchas
come
otras
out of their own
disciplinas.
silos and to take in information from other experts.
Así que, bueno, el festival también, pues, para nosotros genera como
For us,
esas
the
condiciones
festival
para que
creates the
ocurran
best
procesos
conditions for
más
processes to be,
técnicos,
for more technical
para que esos procesos más
processes,
técnicos se conviertan como
and for them
en
to
temas más fáciles para tomar decisiones.
become
Entonces, por ejemplo,
to become
la
decision-making
traslación del
tools. So we have the
conocimiento,
translation of knowledge,
la
where science
construcción,
becomes
la
understandable and
construcción de la
actionable,
confianza,
build trust building,
y también la apropiación
and
de
we
la
also have the
biodiversidad
appropriation
como
of
recurso urbano.
biodiversity
Es
as
decir,
an urban
que
asset.
esa mirada a la biodiversidad
So
no es
this
solamente
look,
como un
having
problema
a look
aislado
as a
que está allí,
biodiversity,
sino
not as an
que
isolated
también es algo
issue in
que
the
entre
background,
muchas personas lo podemos
but that it's
habitar,
something that
desde
we
la
can all
planificación,
work
desde la
together,
cultura, la
from
salud,
planning,
la economía,
culture, health, economy,
bueno,
and all of these
y,
areas.
A ver, es que no me quiero alargar mucho.
I don't want to.
Y bueno,
I'm
y
sorry.
una buena noticia
I don't
que
want to. I don't want to
tenemos
go
es que la próxima
over
edición
time. So the
es,
first
llega
vision that we
acá en
have, and good
Colombia
news,
el
is that we're
próximo
taking
año, en
this
el
next year
2026.
in 2020 and
Tenemos,
2026 to
estamos,
Cali,
la verdad,
Colombia.
muy felices y muy
We are
orgullosos de
very
contar
happy and very
con el
proud
apoyo del
to have the
Instituto
support
Humboldt
of the
como
Humboldt
nuestro
Institute
socio, bueno, como nuestro partner
as our
científico
scientific
y
partner.
también con la alcaldía de Cali.
And we are
Como
happy to have
sabemos,
the
pues, Cali
mayor's
ha
office of
venido,
Cali.
con un proceso
As
muy
we know,
interesante
Cali has had a very
de
interesting
pensar
process
y
of
repensar todo el tema
thinking
de
and
su
rethinking
biodiversidad,
the biodiversity about
apostar
biodiversity, to
por
bet
unas maneras diferentes de
of
hacer
betting
una
on
ciudad más verde,
different ways of creating
justa,
greener,
más
fairer,
resiliente.
and
Entonces,
more resilient
nos
cities.
hace mucha ilusión poder
So we are very
contar con
happy
Cali como
to
la
have
próxima
Cali
casa del
as the
festival.
next home of the festival.
Y en esa línea,
In that
cómo
line,
el festival también puede servir para los
on how the
gobiernos,
festival can work for
como una
governments
plataforma,
and for
que
them
pueda
to use
servir
it as a
para
platform
trabajar esos retos
to
de
work on
biodiversidad, esos
those
retos de ciudad.
on
Pues
those
ya estamos
challenges that
comenzando
cities are
tanto con el
facing.
Instituto y la Alcaldía de Cali
We are working with
a
the Humboldt
trabajar
Institute and the Mayor's Office of
a
Cali. We are
esos
already
retos que tiene
working
la ciudad
on
actualmente en
the
Cali,
challenges
irlos ya
currently
delineando,
facing Cali.
y cuando el festival pase en
And
octubre
so
del
when we
2026,
hold the festival
vamos a
in
contar
October
con expertos
2026,
internacionales,
we will
con
have
expertos locales,
international
con
experts and
artistas,
local experts,
con biólogos,
as well as
y la idea
experts,
es crear
biologists, and so on.
unos
And
talleres
the idea
donde
is to
podamos
prepare
trabajar
workshops
esos retos
where we can
junto
work
a la
on
ciudad,
those
y que
challenges
también
along with
poder
the
dejar a
city
la ciudad un legado.
and to leave a
Eh,
legacy behind for the city.
Así que, bueno, tres lecciones que para
Three key
nosotros el
lessons
Festival de la Naturaleza puede
that the
dar
festival
a una
can bring
región
to
como
any
América
given
Latina.
region, or to a
Pero
region
también
such
no es
as
como-
Latin America,
No es solamente que es el festival, sino que es
and not just the
como el
festival,
festival puede ser una
but the
puede
way
ser
in
como
which the
un lugar
festival
donde las
can
personas que
be
participan pueden
a place
aprender
for
a
participants
llevarse
to
a sus
learn
propios territorios, a
and
su
to
propia
take
casa,
the
sus propias
learning
maneras de hacer,
to
desde
their
una
territories
oficina,
and to their homes,
desde,
and to
desde el
how
lugar
they
donde
do
estén,
everything in their
trabajar
even
ese tema
their
de
offices,
esta
even,
transversalidad,
and how to work on this transversal nature
transversalidad
of the transversal nature of the work that we do at the festival,
de diferentes disciplinas.
and across different disciplines.
Pues eso, estos son como tres temas que queremos dejar en este seminario.
So these are
Que la
three key
biodiversidad se
issues.
gestiona
So
transversalmente,
we have
no
biodiversity
sectorialmente,
management
y de
and
forma
in a transversal
colaborativa.
way, not in a sectorial way,
La
as well as
transdisciplinariedad
collectively.
es clave
So we have
para
the
innovar,
transdisciplinarity
y
is
que la
key for
imaginación,
innovation,
también
and
debe
that
formar parte de
imagination must be
políticas
included in
públicas.
public
Y
policy.
los dejo con esta
I
frase de
will
uno de
wrap up with
nuestros,
this phrase
digamos,
by
The Nature Conservancy fue una de las organizaciones que
from
nos
the Nature
apoyó el año
Conservancy,
pasado,
which is one of the organizations that joined us
y
last year,
nos
Jamie
dijo
Chan.
esto que quería
He
compartirlo
told
aquí, ¿no? Que el
us
conocimiento
this, and I want to
no
share.
se convierte-
So knowledge
que el
only
conocimiento solo se
becomes
convierte en
so only leads to
transformación cuando se
transformation when
comparte, se
shared,
traduce
translated, and
y
lived
se vive
collectively.
colectivamente. Entonces quería dejar esa
That is
esa
the
línea
last thought that I wanted to
para-
leave with you
para poder
to
inspirarlos a
close
todos
out,
en-
so that
en
I
cómo
hope
llevar
I can
todo ese
inspire you
conocimiento
all,
y todo
and
esto a
on
la
how we
práctica.
can bring this
Y bueno,
knowledge
también
to
abrir
practice.
una invitación muy especial
And now I want
a
to
que,
invite you
participen en el 2026,
so that you can
vengan a Cali,
participate in
se unan a
2026. You
nosotros,
you can come to
y hay
Cali,
muchas maneras de
join us.
participar, así
There are
que
many ways you can
bienvenidos.
participate, and so you're
Espero
very
que
welcome.
lo haya dicho en los 8 minutos.
I hope I covered everything in the time that I had.
Gracias, Claudia, de verdad,
Thank you,
lo lograste
Claudia.
en el
You made it
tiempo
in the time.
Y realmente presentaste una metodología muy potente
I
de
think that
unir
you
diferentes
you
actores
presented a
para
very
pensar
powerful
y
way
crear
or
juntos,
methodology to bring together actors to
posibilidades
think
para
together
mejorar
about
y
the
conservar la
possibilities on
biodiversidad, ¿no? Realmente es
conserving
superinteresante
biodiversity. It was really
y queda la
interesting.
invitación a todos.
And,
Bueno,
I do
ahorita
bring
para
it to
cerrar,
everyone.
quisiera
Now,
destacar
to
tres
close
ideas
out, I
claves
want
del
to
World
highlight
Vision.
three key
Primero, la
ideas.
biodiversidad
First,
urbana es un activo
urban
estratégico para
biodiversity
la resiliencia
is a key asset for resilience, well-being, and integrating it to planning brings environmental, social, and economic benefits, among others. Second, we have tools, real projects, successful experiences, and different methodologies which have proven how we can do this in different contexts. Third, we have collaboration is key. Cities, communities, and academies, academia must work together to move forward with these projects. And with that, we are going to wrap up. I want to thank the panelists and all participants. I ask you that you please answer the poll for opening the QR by opening today's activities. I would also like to ask you to sign up to our next seminar in the chat, on the chat, or on the IDB website. Once again, thank you very much for your participation.
Gracias.
Thank you all.
Muchísimas gracias.
Thank you for having